This podcast is part of the No Phony Podcast Network, the home of independent awesomeness.
That is the scariest hippie I think I've ever met in my life.
So,
and this is the most Roger Corman part of the entire movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to explain this part?
Nope. Except they never told the actors it was a bullshit movie. All right. Hey, Casey, how are you, sir?
Good, man.
What a hell of an intro you have figured out for us. What is that from?
That is taken from the show that you told me about that I didn't know anything about. Scott Schwartz was in it, right?
Oh, Raiders of the Living Dead.
Raiders of the Living Dead. Yeah, and I haven't told you this, but I made us an intro, which was based on that intro, and I had a guy on Fiverr do it.
Yeah, Fiverr's pretty awesome. You can get anything done on Fiverr. There's great graphic designers there. There's really good, photography retouchers, and you can get like intros made. You can get animations made. Fiverr's a hell of a place to shop around for shit for podcasting.
Yeah, on my other podcast that I won't mention its name, the one that I no longer do, that's how I got the video intro done on that for Fiverr. And then I showed J Ray from the No Phony Podcast Network that we're on. And he was like, "Why would you pay for that?" And then he made one for me.
Yeah.
And then I kind of figured it out. Like the intro that I did for our show, I made that. I just added a bunch of GIFs together in like this little program that I have on my computer, and then added our background music to it, and that was it. It was actually really simple.
Wow, you're like the Spielberg of podcast video, I guess.
Not
Video
quite.
cast. I like that you're not going to name your old podcast. It's like some shady, like keep the mystery going. Remember, every once in a while, like as we go on and do more, I'll be like, "Yeah, remember that old porno podcast you did?" And then it'll be none the wiser.
It will never be mentioned by name.
Yeah. Well, sadly today, Casey, we don't have any guests. But you've done an amazing job talking to celebrities who are going to come on, pop culture celebrities from back in the day, to help us sort of dig in and get behind the scenes, because that's absolutely fascinating stuff to us. And, hopefully everybody likes it and keeps on listening. What'd you think of the last two podcasts we did?
I think they were pretty damn good. I mean, we got some really good stories out of Scott and out of Larry Hankin. I mean, it's crazy to think that back in the 60s when he was when he was a stand-up comic, that he was opening for like huge bands like Jefferson Airplane, Love and Spoonful, Miles Davis. I mean, that shit just blows my mind, because you and I are both well versed in the music scene, and if that would happen now, I mean, I know like Bonnaroo and these big music festivals have like comics there, stand-up comedy, but they're in their own certain tent. It's not like they're opening for a musician.
I was not familiar with comics doing that until he said that. I actually looked it up afterwards. Yeah, that was a thing. I know like Jim Brewer opened for Metallica for a while, and I thought that was really weird. I'm like, what? Nobody fucking does that. And it turns out that was a pretty common thing. So
yeah,
it's definitely cool to learn about. Yeah, he was a cool dude, man. He has a lot of stories. Same with Scott. It was like, wow, you guys have a ton of stories. So
yeah.
Maybe set up some other interviews with him, because there's more we can learn. Well,
Maybe.
It's been great. Casey, I'm really glad that you asked me to help you with this podcast. You're the expert. I'm still learning. I'm really proud of my sound today, because I've been sweating over that for the last 2 weeks. I'm watching all these videos and I'm like, okay, this is how to do it. And the first time I had the microphone right next to me and I sounded like I was a million miles away. So then I'm like, all right, I'll try this headset next. And then I sounded like a robot. Dude, I was so upset over how crappy I sounded. Today, I now have a $300 headset, and I think I sound okay.
Jesus Christ, Bill, $300.
That's cheap for this kind of stuff, from what I'm learning.
Wow.
Yeah,
this, I mean, to me, in my untrained ears, I thought you sounded great the first two episodes, but I had to send them to you multiple times to be remastered, and I think we have it all figured out now, though.
I think we're getting there. Well, today I thought instead of having guests, we could maybe talk about a few different things. So I have a few segments to maybe throw in front of you. Some I might have told you about, some I might not have. But we'll see if we can have a little bit of fun, in lieu of having a guest. Do we have a guest lined up for next time yet, or should we hold that until?
Let's just hold off for now for the next guest. But in 2 weeks, we will be getting. This is definitely locked down. Robert Ray Schaefer from he played Bob Vance on The Office. Phyllis's husband, and he was also in a horror movie back in the late '80s. And early 90s called Psycho Cop, and then Psycho Cop Returns. So Robert Ray Schaefer.
And what's the one that you sent me information about and I was watching today? I've
already
forgotten the name of it.
He has a fairly new movie out that he made himself called Dick Dixter.
I mean, it's going to be fun when you call a movie Dick Dixter. I watched some Dick Dixter today, as a matter of fact.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna watch it tonight. I want to check out Psycho Cop too before we talk to him.
I don't know what it is about those old movies. They're not made well. I mean, they are absolutely put together by amateurs who don't really know a ton about what they're doing, and somehow they make this magical thing, right? And as a kid, when I used to watch his stuff, I'm like, oh my God, it's so realistic. Holy shit, they're really cutting off Freddy's, he's really pulling skin off his brain. And like the stuff that they could do, just absolutely, like when I watch it now, I'm just completely floored about how I ever in a million years thought that these were good special effects. And now you just like look at them and you could see like the hand like offset, like, squirting the blood. Because we're going to be talking about a movie later, Galaxy of Terror, that falls exactly into that sort of category of holy shit, who let this movie get made, and how did they release it, and how did anybody watch it without going, this is bullshit, I could make this myself. Dick Dixter has that sort of feel, and it's intentional. It's like watching trauma movies. There's no way that they don't know that it's silly and just campy.
Oh, absolutely, for sure.
Well, I thought I'd kick off with a news segment because everybody loves the news. And there's a lot of shitty news out there, Casey, because we're in a pandemic.
Absolutely.
We're quarantined. I think we're on day 212. Feels like a very long time. I think we're only like 60 days in, but I'm like...
I wouldn't even be able to tell you. If I would go through my texts, I would probably, or I have the Google phone and it keeps track of... all of my whereabouts, and I could tell you the last time I worked, but I mean, unless I looked, I would have no idea. It seems like it's been forever, but this doesn't bother me that much. I mean, I like being home. I have a lot of stuff to do. I've been recording a ton of podcasts. I like being by myself. I like just being here on our little compound.
Did you do 4 podcasts today? I think that's what you were planning.
This is my third. Yeah.
You have one more after this?
No more. No. It was just 3 today.
And that's what you mentioned earlier.
I did 4 last Monday.
So how are you doing? Oh, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. After like those interviews, and I hardly did any talking, I was done. I was fried. I was like, no more.
Well, on my other show, On the Road with Jim and Casey, my co-host Jim Morganti does a lot of the talking. We have a system worked out where I'll ask like some questions, and then I'll just hand it over to him, and then I just pretty much wrap it up at the end of the show. I just sit here, and on this show also, when we have guests, I do a thing called speaker view for the Zoom, where when the guest is talking, that they're the ones who you see on the screen.
Yeah.
So I can just, like, during those shows, I can just sit here and, I mean, until the end of the episode, I could fall asleep. Really, nobody's going to see me if I don't say anything. You know what I mean?
I like Zoom. I've just sort of discovered it with this whole pandemic. But yeah, that jumping frames thing, that's just a part of online, whatever they call these sort of devices, these apps, these online just screen sharing apps, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the Zoom has it down pretty good. But I notice, and for the listeners who might be listening, we also have the video version of everything that we do. Casey will certainly plug it all as we continue on here. But the way that it jumps back and forth, I think Zoom does a good job of that. But it's like if you make the little sound, like if I go, like it'll jump over to me, and it screws up the whole flow. That I wish there was like a way to edit that. When this whole thing is done and we get back into your studio, which is really cool, the way that you have it, designed and planned out, and it's going to be, I think it'll be a lot smoother. But this is working pretty good, I think. Ultimately, when you first
absolutely.
approached me, I was like, I don't know if I want to do something virtual, but you proved me wrong. It's really pretty smooth.
Yeah, and especially with some of the guests that we're going to be getting. I mean, even when we're in the studio, I mean, we're going to have to be doing virtual meetings with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's been working great. There's a great feature on Zoom where like you use it a lot for our interviews where you can mute yourself. So if you do call for something, that won't happen. Where it won't switch over to you while the guest is talking if you make a noise. But yeah, I've had to, like on our other show, I had to tell my co-host James several times, like, stop typing so fucking loud while the guest is talking because it's switching over to you while they're talking and you're typing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
yeah. He looks like he's not paying attention. Typing away. Typing an email.
Exactly.
Like, psst, yo, you're on camera, dude. Yeah. That's
exactly.
part of the Zoom world, I guess. Anyway, I said we were starting news, and I got distracted again. See, I think I'm like Jimbo. I'm the motor mouth of the.
No, that's all right.
I'm discovering as I go. Well, in some pop culture news that we hope you are interested in, did you hear about poor old Fred Willard has passed away? Fred Willard dying at 86. I didn't hear what he died from. I hope it's not COVID-19 related. Did you hear about this? Did you catch what he died from?
It was not COVID. It was just natural causes. It wasn't COVID related at all.
Yeah. He's just like Larry Hankin. He's been in so many things. And the first time I found him was Spinal Tap. I was a huge Spinal Tap fan. But it turns out he had like 100 movies even before Spinal Tap, 100 movies and TV shows.
Wow.
So, yeah, he would have been great on this show.
Yeah.
I guess he should have moved a little faster there, Casey.
I'm sure he had some great stories. Yeah, he was just one of those. I loved his dry sense of humor. Like in all of those Christopher Guest movies, he was just wonderful in.
I always wonder when you get an actor like that, how much is improv and how much is scripted.
Yeah,
because all those what's the dog one? A Mighty Wind is another one.
A Mighty Wind, and then
Best of Show. That was
Best in Show. Yep.
I mean, do you think anything, and Spinal Tap as well? I think there's another. But do you think like anything in those movies are scripted at all? I can never tell. It just feels like they're like, okay, here's this sort of premise, go to work. I'm always fascinated watching actors like that perform.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, I'm sure they have some sort of script, but I'm sure with like a lot of those guys like Fred Willard, like a lot of it is just off the cuff, just say funny stuff,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a certain kind of genius to be able to perform that way, always be funny, and to just go and with all the pressure. I mean, you stand on a set, it's not like this intimate thing. I mean, there's people all over milling around doing other things, and you have to sort of act through a scene. And if you're just winging it and kind of making it up and being funny and creating things that are memorable in this, this day and age where there's so much content out there, God bless him. I mean, what a great talent that we've actually lost here. So
yeah.
Other news, Casey. There's other things happening in the world, and I wanted to let you know that Friday the 13th has turned 40.
Wow.
Friday the 13th, the first one, May 9th. What's it today? May 17th. So Friday the 13th has turned 40.
Wow.
And we are old.
Speak for yourself, brother.
How old are you again? I always forget.
I'm younger than Friday the 13th. I'm only 39.
Yeah,
I'm going to be 40 this year, man. Yeah.
Everything changes when you're 40.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, dude. It's bad. It's bad.
like what?
Well, check out colonoscopies. Google colonoscopies.
Yeah, I'm well on my way. Don't worry.
So my wife sent me to to get a colonoscopy because I'm 45. She's like, you're 45. You ought to go get a colonoscopy. I'm like, I know what those are, and I don't think I want one. She goes, come on, you're 45. It's time to get it. So I schedule it. I go in, and I'm laying down. The guy goes, well, what brings you in? I said, well, 45. I'm here to get a colonoscopy. He goes, people don't usually come in until they're 50. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what? Can I go? Now that I'm here, go ahead, put me to sleep. You had that coming to you.
Moon River. Using the whole fist there, Doc?
Nice callback. Nice pop culture callback there. I lost my train of thought. That's a great movie. All right. So I was thinking about Friday the 13th. There's a few famous people. We're going to play a game. We're going to play a little trivia game. There's a few famous people that have come from 80s related horror movies. I have thought of 5 of them.
Okay.
I want to see if you can come up with any famous people that have been in any of the 80s related franchises. We're talking about Halloween. We're talking about, of course, Friday the 13th. Happy birthday. We're talking about Freddy Krueger. We're talking about Leatherface. We're talking about any of those things. Can you name any big stars that have been in any of those franchises?
How about Jamie Lee Curtis got her start in Halloween?
That's a great one.
Right?
That's true. You know what? I didn't even think of her because it was so obvious.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. What else you got?
I'm not going to lie to you, Bill. I cheated when I saw your notes here.
What?
And,
damn it, Google Collab or Google Sheets or what? Drive.
Yeah, you're going to have to hide that from me. I mean, I found different ones that are on your list, though.
All right, who'd you find?
Maybe you don't even know these.
We'll see.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Was he in not Trolls, not Leprechaun. Damn it. You're going to say Jennifer Aniston was in Leprechaun.
Yes, I am.
What was Leonardo DiCaprio in a horror movie? Not what I don't know. What was it?
Critters 3.
Gah! The best Critters. You know what? You're right. I do remember hearing that, but I think when I saw Critters 3, I just didn't pay any attention. That's right. He really was in that.
Yep. Yeah, and you're correct. My next one was Jennifer Aniston.
So I came up with Kevin Bacon, of course, was in the first Friday the 13th. Poor guy was just laying in bed, and Jason's mom, spoiler, if you haven't seen Friday the 13th by now, I'm sure you have, so I didn't spoil shit. But, Jason's mom stabbed him from under the bed. Blade went through the neck. Horrifying. What about Johnny Depp being in the first Nightmare on Elm Street?
Yep. Another one that got just slashed up, right? His
bed ate him.
Oh, his bed ate him.
And then squirted blood all over the ceiling.
I don't remember. I'm not sure if I've ever seen any of the. I mean, I'm not going to say that I haven't seen them. I'm sure I have, but I don't remember a lot of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And if I've seen any of them, it's been clips of them. I'm not sure if I've ever made it through an entire movie.
Really?
Yeah.
And you call yourself a horror fan, sir?
I'm starting to just recently get into the horror scene.
No,
and I'm more of like, I like the campy stuff, like the really, really cheesy horror movies.
For sure. Me too. And the thing is about Freddy Krueger, rather, it starts out serious because Wes Craven did the first one. And of course, Hollywood says, wow, we made a lot of money with that. Let's make some more. And he's kind of like, well, I want to move on. Maybe I'll have some small part of it. But as he kind of let it go, it got campier and campier. And then it's like, you always know, like, it's gone too far when you meet the killer's parents. It's like, then we start getting introduced to the killer's parents. We're like, okay, we're running out of gas here. So, a great example is like Halloween. As the Halloween franchise keeps going, it gets worse and worse. And he's like, you find out he's really Michael Myers is part of a cult, some pagan cult, and there's a whole mysterious crew who are like sort of secretly behind him. So I totally read at it. Even as a dumb kid, I knew this was not good. I knew this shit was out of gas. But Paul Rudd was in Halloween 6.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I love the
Halloween 6.
The fake surprise since you've read my notes.
Halloween 6, you say?
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine? Like, I think it was right around the time he was either before or maybe right after Clueless. I don't know the dates. Like, oh wow, I'm gonna do Halloween and then I'm gonna blow up and become a major, movie star. I hope nobody remembers I was in Halloween 6. So I hear he's a great guy. If I ever see him on the street, I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I know you. You're the guy from Halloween 6. And then I'm gonna walk away. Well, I had two more on my list, two more celebrities who were in horror movies. And I'll say Crispin Glover. I don't know if it was his first role. I like Crispin Glover. He's an interesting guy. I would love to have him on this show.
I'm
He's
not
got
sure
so
I know
much.
who that is.
He played George McFly on Back to the Future.
Okay.
He's got, if you look up some things from the 80s, look up Crispin Glover and David Letterman. They used to really have these crazy interviews where Crispin Glover, I don't think he was acting at all. He just sees the world differently. And the sharp wit of David Letterman was really just kind of chopping him down the whole time. And at one point, he sort of starts talking about how high he can kick. And, he may have been on some illicit materials, but he stands up and he karate kicks Dave's face and the audience just goes, oh, and you see Dave and like, this is like real shit being taped. Like, he's like, time to go, time to get you off the show. You ain't coming back. So he's got a pretty wacky reputation doing
He actually kicked him.
He came very close.
Oh, wow.
So Crispin Glover is out there. But I've heard him interviewed recently, and he's actually he seems he's super smart. He's super interesting. So we'd have a good time talking to him. The last celebrity who started out, let me change that again because I can't even say he started out. I'm going to be talking about Corey Feldman here. So Corey Feldman was also in the same Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Bullshit, the final chapter. It should have been called Bullshit. This is never, there's no shot that this is going to be the final chapter because this thing's making money. I think that was the long title. But yep, Corey Feldman played Tommy there, which is a character that kept on recurring throughout the series. So I guess Corey's not our friend. You told us last week that he has already blocked us because I guess our Scott Schwartz interview might not have gone over too well with him.
And I ordered a very cool patch for the show that I'll be displaying in the future here when I receive it.
Oh boy, you are stirring the pot with Corey Feldman. But I like Corey, man. I like Corey's. I think the internet cut out right as you cursed. It was like the internet's way of censoring you. That was amazing. When you listen back, see if that happened. Because I swear to God that I think it just happened. I think it was just the internet saying, "Do not hurt my Corey Feldman. Do not say bad things about my Corey Feldman." I listened to Scott's story. I was like, man, I hope this ain't true, even though I believed every word of it. Because I was just like, I hope Corey's kind of a cool guy. I hope he's not really doing this stuff because I really like him in Goonies. I really like him in Friday the 13th, the not final chapter. That's bullshit. It'll never be the final chapter because it makes too much money. What else was he in? He was in Gremlins. Like, I'm a big Corey Feldman fan from the 80s.
He was in a ton of stuff, man. So, going back to the movie, the final chapter, the bullshit final chapter, you said that his character is continued on in other movies, but not him?
Yep.
They get
all the way up to part 6. It's a different guy, different actor comes in and accidentally brings Jason back to life. So,
oh wow! So wait, he was like a character from the very beginning, or he started at number 6 and then went from there?
No, he started on the final chapter, but not the final chapter. It's bullshit because it's not going to be the final chapter. Is that joke wearing thin yet?
No.
Which was, I think, I guess that was 3. I guess final chapter was 3. No, I don't think I have that right. I think it was 4. Then part 5 was the fake Jason. Then part 6 was the dead, buried Jason that they brought back to life. And then after part 6, he's been a zombie ever since.
Okay.
So I think I got that right. Well, here's the last news segment. And if this is going on too long and boring, you can edit the shit out of it. Are you a Star Wars fan?
No.
You're not a Star Wars fan?
Not at all. I have one more celebrity though that you skimmed over that got his start in horror movies.
Give me a hint.
One from my list. He was in a movie called Return to Horror High.
George Clooney.
Yeah, buddy.
Wow, that's a good one. Yeah, George Clooney. Wow.
He was also in. I'm not sure how early in his career it was, but what was the vampire?
Dusk Till Dawn.
Dust Till Dawn. Was that
Yep.
that was fairly early in his career too, right?
It's early in his movie career. He was still
Yeah.
doing ER, and he was getting out of ER and moving to film. That's a Robert Rodriguez movie.
Yeah, Quentin Tarantino, right? He had something to do with that.
Yeah, I don't know how much he was behind the scenes, but he was definitely a character.
Yeah.
He tends to like to tinker with things even when he's only, got a small sort of association with it.
Hmm.
I love that about Hollywood. I love when like guest artists come in. It's just like the music that we love, like how Eric Clapton was actually in, some of the Beatles songs was in While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Like Tina Turner was in a couple Frank Zappa songs early on.
Yep.
And you just don't really know it. So I kind of like when Hollywood works that way.
Yeah, Sam Raimi's big with that with Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell, I think, has like a I've read 2 or 3 of Bruce's books, and they call it the Shemping, where they have like Bruce Campbell just comes in and he'll actually play like multiple roles in one movie, like just in the background somewhere, where you won't even like know that it's him, but he's in like all of the movies.
That's great.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a superhero fan. The Spider-Man trilogy that happened, that was in 2000s.
Okay, I'm a DC guy, so I know of the Spider-Man movies and stuff. I've never watched them.
There was a cameo in each movie by Bruce Campbell. Yeah, so like he had a different role in each movie. So the rumor I heard, I don't know if it's true, was they were going to make a part 4, but part 3 had bad reviews. There was a little bit too much friction behind the scenes. I don't think it made as much money, so it just kind of died. But apparently part 4 was supposed to start with Mysterio. Mysterio is a character who was just introduced in the last Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man movie, but he was supposed to appear like maybe in the beginning of part 4, and we're going to unmask him like Scooby-Doo style. And it was going to be Bruce Campbell. Like, I've been following you for 3 movies, and you finally caught me. I'm Mysterio. Like, that's damn funny. That would have been a great idea.
Well, I just heard there's a rumor now that he's going to be in the new Mr. Doctor Strange movie.
He's going to be in it. Well, because Sam Raimi might be directing it.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if that. I think that is a done deal. Who knows anymore with the quarantine stuff? Anything can change. Especially with Marvel. I mean, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's like it's their game. You got to really play within their rules. If you don't, then you end up kind of working your way out of the franchise. So yeah, I mean, if Sam gets along well with the Marvel people, I can't wait to see what the next Doctor Strange is going to be, because they said they want it to be a little bit more of a horror movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
oh wow.
I mean, a Disney horror movie. Who knows how horrific it's going to be, but
right. Well, like you said, he did 3 Marvel movies before the Spider-Man series. That was the original Spider-Man series, right?
Yeah, the original movie.
I mean, that's not, is that in this, see, I don't know, I'm not sure how Marvel works. Is that in the same universe as all the stuff that's going on now with like the Avengers, and like, was that movie in the same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're talking about the Sam Raimi ones.
Yeah.
No,
everything, that's all different, right? Everything's changed since then. There's been like 4. How many different Spider-Man reboots?
There's been. I mean, we had some stuff in the 70s. We don't talk about that. But then you had the Sam Raimi one that ran 3 movies. Then they called it the Amazing Spider-Man instead of just Spider-Man. Forget who directed that. I think we made like teen drama movies before he got the role. His name is escaping me, but it had Andrew Garfield played Spider-Man for 2 movies in his world, in this guy's little universe, and they were going to try to turn it into a bigger thing, because that was just getting hot. Like, if we could start creating, can you hear my dogs barking?
Yeah, not too bad though.
I'm going to yell at them, shut the fuck up. They are totally throwing me off. Anyway, so no, there were 3 movies made by Sam Raimi Then there were 2 movies made by this guy whose name I can't remember. It's probably being blocked out intentionally because they weren't very good movies. But they were going to try to set up their own big franchise. So that died. And then Iron Man came out. Then Iron Man was followed by The Incredible Hulk. And what they were doing is they were basically taking these leftover characters, and this is Marvel proper, Marvel, the movie division. They were taking the characters that they still had the rights to. And that's why Ant-Man is out there. Like, these are like minor characters compared to X-Men, or compared to like Fantastic Four, or compared to Spider-Man, who they didn't have the rights for. So now Marvel, who's now owned by Disney went and bought Fox. So in the next couple of years, you're going to start seeing those characters you didn't see before showing up in Marvel movies. So the Fantastic Four, all the X-Men, it's all going to be a giant reboot. Deadpool, who that's been doing really well, is now in the world with Spider-Man and Iron Man and all those characters.
Okay. So even though they're all in the Marvel universe, they were owned by different companies?
Yeah.
So they couldn't merge them all together and stuff until now, right?
No, they couldn't.
That's crazy.
It's weird to believe or to think rather, but we all know it to be true. Like, Marvel had a lot of money problems. So to sort of get some cash back in the business, they sold the rights of the characters off to different people. We ought to talk about the Fantastic Four movie that was made years ago. Oh, this is going to be we'll definitely cover the Fantastic Four movie because we're talking about Roger Corman today. But this is an example of what happens in Hollywood. So, Marvel sold the Fantastic Four to this group, and this group has X years to make a Marvel movie, or the rights default back to Marvel. So if you want to keep the name, if you want to keep the Fantastic Four, you got to make a movie. So they basically, this company, who I can't remember who it was, I'd have to do some research on it, basically said, hey, let's hire Roger Corman to make a movie so that we don't have to give the Fantastic Four back because we're not ready yet. At some point, we want to make a proper Fantastic Four movie. So they built a bullshit movie. Except they never told the actors it was a bullshit movie. We'll definitely do a show on
this. Is this the original Fantastic Four?
Original from like 1980.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely want to see that.
Yeah. All right. I'm putting that one on the list. We're gonna do a breakdown of that. Well, anyway, back to Spider-Man in the news. See, I'm already tired. I don't know how you do 4, 5, 6, 7 podcasts a day. You're incredible, Casey.
Star Wars.
So I'm a pretty big fan of all things Star Wars. They got the Mandalorian show on Disney Plus. You haven't seen that then, but it's a good show. It's a really, really good show. And it's about a group of characters. It's almost like this religion in the Star Wars universe. And these Mandalorians, they look like Boba Fett. You've heard of Boba Fett?
I've heard of Boba
Fett. Well, Boba Fett died in Return of the Jedi. He got, scarfed down by a giant hole in the sand with teeth. And later it had a Little Shop of Horrors type of monsters jumping out of it. So, Boba Fett is dead. But the news is now that Boba Fett's going to appear in The Mandalorian. So it sounds like he wasn't dead. We saw a scene in The Mandalorian where somebody mysterious walked up and you saw their feet right next to a dead character. And you're like, oh, is that Boba Fett? That could be a tease. At one point, we might see Boba Fett walk through the background. So it's not a big surprise. But my thought is maybe it's a little bit too much fan service. Like, if you're going to go back to make money and bring all these guys back to life, that's a little dangerous. I don't know. Like, people could revolt. People love Boba Fett and they like, so I think there's going to be people that are like, I liked his story arc and the way it went. I don't think you need to keep bringing it up and making money on it. But Star Wars has a habit of doing that. You're not a big fan of Star Wars, but you probably know Darth Maul, right? You've seen the guy with the dual lightsaber and the red face, and he got his body cut in half. And then they started to make Disney cartoons that were part of canon, and he came back to life, but with like robot feet. I'm like, I think you're taking a liberty here. You got to be a little careful. So I worry a little about the Star Wars future for like old fans like me, because I just think they're going to keep on trying to make money. And I'm afraid that they're going to push a little too hard, bring characters back that ought to stay dead. I worry about the same thing with Marvel too. You haven't seen Endgame, but Tony Stark, spoilers, dies. But how long is Tony Stark really going to be dead until they say, hey, Tony Stark or Robert Downey Jr. made the most money. We ought to bring him back. But he's dead. Revive him. How? Make some shit up. Like, at some point, it'll start to get sloppy. So I'm a little worried about this with Star Wars.
So explain to me, you said in the cartoon they brought him back to life with robot legs. How does that work? Are the stories intertwined with the cartoons and the actual movies?
Yeah, all those cartoons that are coming out now are part of canon.
Explain that to me? What canon and what that?
There's for Star Wars, there's canon. Canon is just this is part of the entire universe. This is part of the whole text, right? They used to have all these Star Wars books that at some point a couple of years ago, Lucasfilm came out, or Disney or whoever it was, and said, okay, all of these stories, we're putting them under the legends category. They're not real. They didn't happen in the timeline. They're legends. They're equivalent to fan fiction. But these stories are part of canon. So, you know, Luke Skywalker, if you read here that he did this, he really did it. You know, in the cartoon where they bring back Darth Maul, he's really back to life in the big picture.
Okay, it makes sense.
Yeah, so that's what canon is.
So canon is like when they say the Marvel universe, like canon is like that is their Star Wars universe.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So if they make like a silly little Lego animated Star Wars feature, which I think they made a cartoon show, that's not canon. So they can do whatever they want. It's not real. It doesn't really impact, you know, the main storyline and the main universe. So they have a game out. It's called Battlefront 2. I think it's made by the guys that make Battlefield. We ought to hook up and play one of those games.
All right.
So there's a campaign story in there. There's multiplayer, but there's also a campaign story. And in that story, they had an actor named, I'm going to say it wrong, Tamara Morrison, but he's the guy that played the clones in the Clone Wars movie, right? So they have him playing the voice of Boba Fett in the game. So they've always been teasing that he might come back and play Boba Fett, and he's actually the actor that they said is coming back to play Boba Fett. So you ever see the Aquaman movie?
Yes.
Remember the father that took over parenting guardianship of Aquaman?
On land?
On land.
Yeah.
So he's going to be the new Boba Fett.
Oh, okay.
Kind of a cool casting. He's a bit older than, you know, he was in those original prequel movies, but, you know.
Yeah. He was actually in the prequel movies also?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
He was like photocopied a bunch of times because he was what everybody looked like.
Mm-hmm. Now, being that you're a Star Wars fan, and I know I've seen the first movie, the original, very first one.
This is incredible.
I know
none of this could be true.
It's true, brother. How do you feel about the prequels? I know they get a lot of flack from a lot of Star Wars fans.
There's the tone and everything about them is so different from the original movies. George Lucas, I think he's like, you know what? I want to create a broader universe. I want to create something with a little bit more. He put a lot of like political boundaries in place, like, you know, political boundaries, like political parameters, I guess. So it ended up being very much a political movie and a lot going on. And that was so different from the first three movies. That was like a very simple, you know, just like a Western almost, like you have a beginning and an end, and there's really not a lot of complication in between it, in between the movies or in between the scenes. These first three movies were pretty complicated. And I didn't love them. They were filmed in a way that everything was digital because George Lucas was really into CGI effects. And I think there's definitely something lost when you're just completely using CGI and no practical effects. I will say I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe has probably done the best job I've ever seen of mixing the two. But there's still times where I look at that last Endgame and go, holy shit, why does that guy look that way? That's bad special effects, you know? There's still too much CGI in movies that pull me out of the movie. With Star Wars, somehow growing up on it, with it being cheap, like, you know, it was compared to the way that the movies are these days, something just seems a little bit more realistic about it. It's the same thing watching old horror movies, too, that are using practical effects versus special effects. You know, I like the practical effects. I just think they look a lot more real, and it's a lot more. I can get pulled into that world a little bit more than seeing something going, holy shit, like Aquaman. That ending of Aquaman, it was just like, was it like 4 hours of special effects? Because it sure felt that way. Like, you know, you don't have to just knock us over with CGI.
Right.
It pulls me right out of the movie. But somehow Endgame worked. But the original trilogy, too much special effects for my tastes.
Okay. So if someone was to go back and say they want to watch, how many movies are there now? First,
In the
and the,
Skywalker franchise,
yeah, and like the total. I don't know.
well, the ones that relate to Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, there's 9, and then
9.
there's 9. Yeah. So the
Jesus.
prequels, the 3 that just came out, and then the original 3 from the 80s.
Holy shit.
And then they made it's not even a true statement because then they made a solo movie. So I guess he fits into the whole thing. So maybe that we count that as 10.
Wow.
They made Rogue One, which is about stealing the plans for the Death Star, which is what they had to fight in the first Star Wars. So, so I guess technically it's 11
Holy shit.
that are in the Skywalker saga.
Yeah. So those 11 movies, do you start someone that hasn't seen them? I've only ever seen the first one. Would I start at that first one, or would you start at the prequels and then just go forward from there?
I hear people ask this question all the time somehow because it's getting to the point where a lot of my friends have kids and they're like, should I show them, the way we grew up on it, or should I show them the chronological order? I don't know, man. I don't know the answer. I want everyone to experience the joy of the first 3 movies, the disappointment of the next 3 movies, and then the still on the fence about the last 3 movies. Yeah, for you, I don't know, man. Maybe see them chronologically and tell me if you enjoyed it.
I mean, I'm probably
You'll be
not
my
going
case
to
study.
do that. I have so much other stuff to watch. I don't think I can find time for 10 other Star Wars movies that I had never had interest in to begin with.
You might find out you like them. You're in quarantine. Well, you got nothing but free time. You're doing 20 podcasts a day.
I got too much to do. I have too many podcasts to record.
Fair enough. Well, when we can get out of our houses again, I'm gonna have a Star Wars party. It's just gonna be me and you. And I'm gonna talk through every damn part of it and really shut the fuck up. Oh, okay. So this is Lando Calrissian, and he lives on the cloud. Shut up! I can watch and see who he is.
See, no, I would probably rather have you just explain the movies to me than watch them.
That's why you're destined for podcasts.
Can you just break it down into like a half an hour?
I probably could, because the plot lines really aren't that complex until you get to the first 3. Then I got to tell you about the Senate and all the political, and you're gonna be like, "Oh my God, this sounds like real life. Fuck this." Yeah. Fuck the first trilogy. Hey man, why don't we move this thing along? I have another segment idea called "What Are You Consuming?" So the thought here is, I'm curious, what have you been into lately that I don't know about? And I'll tell you something that I've been into lately that you don't know about.
Okay.
Whips and chains. I'm jumping ahead. Go ahead. Why don't you tell me first? What have you been into lately?
You want me to start?
You can start if you have something.
All right.
Ready?
Yeah, I have something. I've been watching. I know we talked about this before. I've been watching the new wrestling league. It's called AEW, All Elite Wrestling, and it was founded by, his name's Tony Khan. His dad owns the Jacksonville Jaguars. They own another soccer team over in England somewhere. I forget the name of it. They're big names. Like they got Chris Jericho from he was their first like major signee from the WWF.
Sure,
yeah. Cody Rhodes. Do you remember Dusty Rhodes from?
Yeah.
It's his son Cody and another son Dustin Rhodes. They're in it together.
Okay.
And it's on every Wednesday night. They have a TV deal with TNT. It's the first time wrestling's been on TNT in 20 years. They got a 4-year contract, like right off the bat. Well, actually, it was a 1-year contract, and then halfway into their first year, they got signed on for another 3 years.
TNT. So I'm not a big wrestling fan, but I remember TNT, right? Turner created did he create ECW?
WCW. He actually, yeah, there was, back in the 80s, there was a territory system where it was like the Mid-South. I don't know all the territories. There was like different territories around the country where, Andre the Giant would go to this territory and wrestle for them on all of their different shows for like 4 months, 3 months, around around their area of the country. And then he'd go on to another territory, like up in the Northwest, and work in those shows for like 4 or 5 months, you know. And then Vince McMahon bought everything. He started buying up all the superstars. He started like just gobbling everyone up. So these territories just started falling by the wayside because they weren't getting these major big stars anymore, like Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Big John Studd. You know what I mean? So Vince McMahon all these small little territories just started closing up because Vince McMahon took over. They got television rights or television deals and all that, and started broadcasting on cable. And then one of the territories, it was the NWA, I think.
The NWA.
Yeah.
You sure it's the NWA?
Positive, yeah.
Not a copyright or trademark infringement there?
No. No, I think it's the Northern Wrestling Alliance, which is now owned by Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins.
I knew he was a big wrestling fan.
Yeah,
he actually
bought all the rights now to NWA, and it's on every Tuesday on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's like he's going back to those territory days, like the 80s style of wrestling, where it's basic wrestling in a studio with a small audience. I mean, it's pretty neat what he's doing. He's taking it back to the 80s.
I remember being young, maybe 10, 11 or 12, and if you stayed up late enough, there was a wrestling series that had like King Kong Bundy, and it seemed like it was a second series. It was kind of like the GoBots to the Transformers. There was this to what was exploding with WWF, but I never really thought there was a bunch of different circuits. And was Vince basically plucking people out, or was he buying the circuits?
No, he was
bankrupting the circuits somehow.
He was plucking people that he wanted, basically. He was, and then they were the major stars of those territories. So once they left, you know, they didn't really have a lot of, they weren't bringing in the crowds. And, you know, back then it was crazy. If Hulk Hogan was on your card, you could sell out an arena just because his name was on your card.
Yeah, they were big.
You know? I mean, it was crazy back then. Wrestling was insane back then.
Yeah. I mean, so you have a history in wrestling that I'm not completely clear on. And then as you were writing your bio, you're like ex-professional wrestler. I'm like, the hell? I didn't know anything about it. What did you do?
Yeah, so right out of high school, that guy I mentioned earlier, Danny Rose, that had the Kevin Bacon story.
Yeah.
He went to my high school, and I played football, and he graduated, I think, maybe 4 or 5 years ahead of me. And he came back after he was in the Army. We were at a practice one day, and he came back, and he was talking to our head coach, John Yoakum, and got to talking to everybody and find out who the hell he was, you know, why he was there and whatever, and found out that he was a pro wrestler, and started kind of following his career. Became friends with him. Found out I was going to train locally here in Reading, and with a guy named Jimmy Dio, who he was like one of the known guys around here as far as like local independent wrestlers. Like after the territories died down and Vince McMahon bought everything up, then now we have what's called independent wrestling, where it's not so much territories. Like there's at least, let's say, 5 independent wrestling companies in our area now. You know what I mean? So it's not just one little company taking over a whole territory. So I found out that Jimmy Dio was the shits. He wasn't any good. I went to a couple of his matches. He basically did a clothesline and punched. He didn't really do many moves, you know. So to be trained by someone that they don't know, you know, he just wasn't any good. You know, I wasn't a fan of his, you know.
So you do know it's not real.
Sure, Bill,
Okay.
I do know that, and especially after I've trained. But
how could it not be good? Because the script he was given wasn't good, or are you given certain freedoms to improv and he wasn't good at improvisation because he didn't have the moves down? Is that what you mean?
I think that's what I mean. Yeah, he just he didn't have like a lot of moves, like his basic moves. Like where a punch, a clothesline, just basic shit. You know what I mean?
I could do that.
Yeah, exactly. But he didn't even make it look good. You know what I mean? Of course, it's not real, but you still have to make it look believable.
Right.
It's an art. It's an art form. It's like acting. You have to make it look. And a lot of these older wrestlers back in the 80s and stuff, if you look back at those matches, they were punching each other. They were what we call stiff in the business. Like they were beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah, there's no fake, and like you jump from the top rope, and maybe they got springs on the mat or whatever. Like that was an elbow to the face.
Yeah. So then I found out about this Danny Rose. I became friends with him. Another friend of mine, Kelly Murphy, he's passed away now. We went to his house and found out about this training center up in Allentown with former ECW wrestlers called Bad Crew. It was Jake and Paul, and I think it was $3,000 maybe. I went, paid. Well, actually, my dad paid for it, $3,000 for me to go to this wrestling school, and I went every Tuesday and Thursday up to Allentown and trained for about a year. I'd say I had about maybe 25 matches before I just gave it up. I was getting the shit kicked. I broke my elbow, I think twice. I was getting paid maybe like $20-25 a match. I talked to one of my trainers on my other podcast, Paulie, and he said he doesn't understand why I never pursued it. Like why I only ever worked for them. Like I said, there's all these other different independent wrestling companies out. He says that, he thinks I really could have made it if I would have pursued it a little more, but I'm not really comfortable around a lot of new people. And it was just like, I felt I was so comfortable with the guys that I trained with and with their promotion, so I did work for a couple other companies here and there, but it was all guys that I was comfortable with, that I knew. Like Darren Wise ran his own promotion down in New York, and I worked for him a couple times. But I met a lot of awesome people, a lot of old wrestlers that I grew up watching, like Bob Backlund, Bushwhackers, King Kong Bundy, Chris.
Chris who?
Chris, that was King Kong Bundy's name, Chris.
Oh, you guys were like that.
Yeah.
I guess you don't go, hey, what's up, King Kong?
Kamala, remember Kamala?
Kamala, I don't remember.
He was like the
Kamala.
Ugandan giant. He used to come out and bang on his chest and stuff.
Oh, I don't remember him.
Yeah.
All right, let's go toe to toe on 80s wrestlers. Let's see who can remember the most, and you're absolutely going to kick my ass. So I'm going to start with the easy one. Hulk Hogan.
Jake the Snake Roberts.
Andre the Giant.
Tito Santana.
Coco Beware. Going deep.
Iron Sheik.
Sergeant Slaughter.
Rick Martel.
Rowdy Piper. Is it Rowdy?
Rowdy Piper.
Okay.
Nikita Koloff.
Rowdy Piper is about as hard to say as yet another pop culture podcast. Why didn't we pick a name for this thing that's like impossible to say? Hey, I got a good idea. Let's get into the audio arts and say shit we can't actually pronounce and say without choking and stammering. All right, whose turn is it?
I think it's your turn.
All right, 80s, because I did follow the 90s a little. Like who's that guy? The Ultimate Weapon Warrior, the Ultimate Warrior. Like that's 90s. That's the next.
No, he was in 80s.
He was?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, then I'll use him.
All right. Let's go with Dino Bravo.
I've never heard of Dino, bro. Georgie Animal Steel.
Bad News Brown.
Who the fuck? Bam Bam Bigelow.
Did we say King Kong Bundy yet?
Did he make it into the W? Well, he was in 80s. I asked 80s.
He was in the WWF. Yeah, he was in WrestleMania 1.
Did he win?
No, he lost to Hulk Hogan.
All right.
No. I mean, I could probably go on with this for hours. I have been recently. Also, what I've been consuming is 1988 Primetime Wrestling.
All right.
on
We can watch.
on the WWE network.
I could get into watching some of that again. That was pretty good. Macho Man and like that sort of moment where all these like side characters started stepping in, like everybody had an entourage, and then they would get all upset and jump into the ring. I'll let ship because I was believing every piece of it. I thought it was all chaos.
It's crazy. It's crazy now that I'm going back and watching it. Now that I'm older, and I do the research as I'm watching it. Like 88 Primetime Wrestling, Jake the Snake Roberts. There's an angle with him and Rick Rude where Rick Rude is constantly wearing tights with Jake the Snake Roberts' wife on him on the tights, and she's in the crowd, and but Rick Rude doesn't know that it hit. This is the first meeting, you know. She's in the crowd, and Rick Rude, he's this stud, you know, ravishing Rick Rude. He always takes his robe off. He's got the six-pack, you know. Well, he goes out to the crowd, and there's this beautiful woman in the crowd, and he takes off the robe, and he's doing the whole body thing, you know. And here it's Jake the Snake Roberts' wife, right? And going back now and researching it, this is the first time that someone's wife was like brought into the scene on WWF like television.
Yeah.
And the reason for it was because Jake Roberts had just gotten out of rehab, and Vince wanted his wife to go on the road with him to keep him in line. And then she got brought into the angle, like because of it. Yeah.
Yeah, write her into the storyline.
Yeah.
Are there times, do you ever hear stories about where somebody didn't follow the script, like, you know, $1 Million Man was supposed to lose, but they screwed up and he accidentally like pinned somebody because he forgot the script, or, you know, like, is there ever behind the scenes drama, or did they pretty much follow their scripts to the T?
Well, there's a famous one. It's called the Montreal Screwjob. It's with it was with Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and Earl Hebner was the referee, and then Vince McMahon, of course, owns the WWF. Well, Bret Hart, his contract was up. He was supposed to drop the title to. I might have this wrong. It's been a long time since I
get it right. You'll get sued. you know they're listening.
It's been a long time since I've had to remember this story. Bret Hart's contract was up, and he was going to WCW. So he was supposed to lose the title to Shawn Michaels. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to go out his own way. Whatever, you know. He's been around for a long fucking time. He was the champion for a long time. He brought a lot of money to the company. Well, Shawn Michaels put Bret Hart in Bret Hart's own finishing move. Vince McMahon was at the ringside, and he told Earl Hebner to ring the bell. Like, Bret Hart never gave up, never tapped out, and they rang the bell. And it's all on television. Like, it was all recorded. Bret Hart, he throws a fucking fit, and he spits in Vince McMahon's face, like, on television, and he goes like this on the screen and writes WCW on WWF television.
When you were doing wrestling, like, did you get scripts? Did someone say, okay, you're going to be the mush here, wear these pink hot pants in, you know, a boa? Or, like, how did you get to design did you get to design your character and your storyline?
So the wrestlers know who's going to win and who's going to lose, of course. In WWF, there's a script. They have writers. They're told to throw punch here, throw punch there, do this move, do that, kick this, you know. And everything has to be everything goes through Vince McMahon in WWF. There's a writer's room. It's just like, you know, any television production. There's writers, and you're told like the day before television what you know, the wrestlers in WWF have a very small amount of time to learn what they're supposed to do on television for that night, you know. In AEW, they're giving it back to the wrestlers. They have, like, Tony Khan, the guy that owns the company, he's been a wrestling fan since he's been a little kid, and I listened to a couple of podcasts that he's been on. He's actually been writing wrestling scripts like since the 80s, like making up his own stuff. So he has like an idea of what he wants to do for the companies, but it's the wrestlers now are back to calling their own matches. They know the final outcome, but what happens in between is all between you and the other person. And it's the same with when I wrestled independently around here. They give you the final outcome. You know who's going to win and who's going to lose. But it's all, you work that match out with the guy that you're wrestling before the show, or sometimes like even like with bigger names, like my friend Dan, he was a pretty popular champion around our area. He's wrestled guys where they'll just go out and they don't talk about anything before the show. Like before the show starts, like you work it out in the ring. And it's the same.
You don't say it's not choreographed at all. You don't say like, all right, I'll hit you 3 times and you do 2, and then I'll do a suplex, and then you do. It's all completely filled out on the mat. Pretty
much, yeah. I mean, you go over. They call them spots. They go over specific spots in the back, before the match starts. But no, a lot of it is on the fly, and then like, especially I talked to a guy that did a lot of wrestling over in Japan, where there's that language barrier, where a lot of times they don't have translators, so it is all on the fly in the ring with someone that you can't even understand, and some of those Japanese matches with American workers are some of the best wrestling that I've ever seen.
Yeah. How about that, like backyard wrestling? Is that still a thing?
I'm not sure if that's so much a thing now anymore, but for sure when I was first getting started, like in high school, me and my buddies, I have to dig out some of the VHS tapes, but we had like our own federation and everything. Like I was my name in the backyard wrestling was Rich Lather.
Rich Lather.
Yeah.
Like when you soap yourself up in the shower and you develop a rich lather.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you come up with that name?
I was in the shower and I was looking at the shampoo bottle and it said Rich Lather, and I was like, ding. So that was my backyard wrestling name before I got into the pro wrestling. My pro wrestling name was Zach Lee, spelled. And then when I'd go into the ring, the announcer would go, introducing, I was from Stonersville, Pennsylvania, which is a real place.
Yeah, it's right down the street from me.
Yeah, so the announcer would go, introducing from Stonersville, Pennsylvania, Zach Lee. And I would grab the microphone and I played a stoner, like hippie character. And I would go,
what a stretch.
And I would go, hey, man, it's ZAACKKLEE. Exactly.
Well done. Yeah. When I first met you, you were in Grateful Dead clothes, and I was like, that is the scariest hippie I think I've ever met in my life. Like, I do not want to piss him off, and now I know why, because you're really a professional wrestler.
Yeah, buddy. So that's my pro wrestling story. Yeah, but this AEW, what I've been consuming, back to that, it's like back to the old wrestlings. They're bringing cool storylines back. Like they're not. It's not. They have a small roster. It's not like 1,000 guys that you're trying to keep up, the storyline with. And right now, during this pandemic time, during the lockdown, I mean, they've been wrestling in empty arenas and doing the best that they can. It's been tough, but they do have like the other wrestlers that are on the show, like surrounding the ring, like in the first row, trying to do the best they can. WWF, they also run the same night, Wednesday nights, and I've glanced at their shows occasionally, and they're not the same. They don't have anyone in the crowd, and it's just like dead silence, and it's rough.
That's got to be weird. That can't be, good for them. I don't know if you watch Saturday Night Live. They're trying to do their show at home, and when you don't hear the laughter, it just, the energy is just not in the skits.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine how wrestlers are doing it without an audience.
Yeah. The only thing I can say about the wrestling is like I said, when I was wrestling like in Reading, Pennsylvania, or Hamburg, it might have been in front of like 10 people, 15 people, 20 people. So these wrestlers going back, when they go back to their beginnings, their roots, it's just the same feeling as then. They're getting paid, they're trying to do the best that they can, and they're doing a good job of it. So yeah, it's on Wednesday nights on TNT at 8:00.
How do we watch the '80s WWF? What was that on?
That's on the WWE Network. It's like I think $10 a month, and it has everything back from. I mean, Vince McMahon, like I said, he bought all those guys from the territory system. Well, now he's gobbling up all of their archives. He's got Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling on there. He's got just tons of shit from like everything from, I'd say, the 60s till now. And that's the only reason I have it. I don't watch any new WWF at all. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan. I stopped watching it in the late 90s. I'm just not a fan of the whole scripted like soap opera thing. It got too soap opera-y.
Yeah.
AEW is doing a really nice job with what they're doing.
They're going back to the roots of just wrestling and good old wrestling entertainment, and not the character.
Yeah, and I mentioned Dusty Rhodes. His son is he's the president of the company, Cody Rhodes. Dusty got a lot of flack back in the day in the early 80s when he was running a company. I can't remember the name of it now, but he was doing the bookings, the promotions. Dusty ran everything. Well, he was also the champion all the time because he was the booker. Mm-hmm. And he got a lot of flack for that, Cody now has had several like opportunities to write himself in as the champion, and he loses like in all the big matches. So it's really cool. Dude, I'll send this to you. It's actually really like kind of hard to watch. He took 10 belt lashes on live television to get to the next step of like this. Like he had to do like 3 things in order to fight this one guy. And like the belt lashes was like the 3rd thing. And it is insane.
You sure you're watching wrestling, not BDSM porn?
Dude, Cody Rhodes loves the wrestling business, man. He took 10 solid, hard belt whips to the back and chest, all for the love of wrestling.
He loves it more than I ever will. I wouldn't do that. Crazy, man. Yeah, I mean, it was when I was a kid. It was the universe, and I got to say that when I found out it was fake, which is why I know they were trying to keep the mystique. Like obviously, the whole time Vince McMahon's like, yeah, they clearly know it's fake, but we're not going to say it. For a long time, they didn't reveal it. And I remember having an argument with my next door neighbor's dad, and I'm 10 and he's 50, and he's like, "Oh no, man, it's real. It's real. I've seen real blood." And like he kind of kept me like, maybe it is real, maybe. But as soon as I found out it wasn't, it was for me. It was like, this is over. I guess it's like finding out about Santa or the Tooth Fairy. It just sort of the shine went away from it. So yeah, I got out of it in about the end of the 80s.
Well, there's another talking about what you're talking about with people believing it's real. There's another episode, or there's another series on Vice Channel that I highly recommend for anyone to watch. It's called Dark Side of the Ring, and it tells like these behind the scenes stories of wrestling that like you've never heard before. The first season they actually did an episode on that Montreal Screwjob, but this season they did one on. You've heard of the reporter John Stossel?
Yeah,
he was a CNN reporter.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, he wanted to expose the wrestling business. He thought he saw it on television. He's like, this is fake. It's not real. These guys, if they're getting punched that hard, he wouldn't be getting up. This is all fake. So he wanted to expose it. I think he exposed some major things back in the 80s. I can't exactly remember what they were, but he was sent and he was allowed backstage at a WWF event in the 80s. And there was a guy, his name was Dr. D. David Schultz. And he was the one that Vince told to go out and talk to this John Stossel. And Vince said, do not break kayfabe. Well, kayfabe is the wrestling term of protecting the business, you know? So John Stossel asked Dr. D, is wrestling fake? And Dr. D smacked him as hard as he could and said, is that fake? Does that feel fake to you?
Wow.
Knocked him down. And then he got up and he knocked him down again. So Dr. D lasted about another week in WWF and was fired. He was never hired again to work, right? So John Stossel was paid an enormous amount of money. And Hulk Hogan was the major star at the time. Him and Mr. T were on the Richard Belzer show to talk about, I believe it was, I guess it was WrestleMania 1. Richard Belzer said something to Hulk Hogan about wrestling being fake, and Hulk Hogan put him in a front facelock chokehold. You can watch it on YouTube. Richard Belzer goes completely limp. Hulk Hogan choked him out on television and dropped him on the stage, busted the back of his head open. You could actually hear him snoring on camera. Like he was out cold. He wakes up, he pops up, and like you can tell like he has no fucking clue what's going on. He's just like, we'll be right back. And he turns around and there's blood. Like you can see the blood on the back of his shirt. Vince McMahon paid it off and Hulk Hogan became Hulk Hogan, you know?
Wow. I remember that happening, actually.
And Dr. D never worked in wrestling again after smacking the shit out of John Stossel.
What do you know about the wrestling with his name, the comedian from the 70s, 80s?
Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman, yeah. So
Yeah,
I know his
Jerry
history.
Lawler.
But I never knew how much of that was scripted with Jerry, how much was just Andy being Andy, and like, Jerry just trying to keep up. So what's the backstory there? Has that ever
All
come
scripted.
out?
All scripted.
Ah, really? Okay.
Yep. It was all scripted. Yeah, it's actually comes out in that in the Man on the Moon movie that they did on Andy Kaufman's life.
They talked about it being scripted.
Yeah, they talk. Well, they show him and Jerry together. Yeah, like just talking, hanging out.
I don't remember.
Because Jerry actually played himself in that movie.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all a work, as they say, brother.
I remember the Hulk Hogan one now that you bring it up, and I remember Belzer popping up and like it was.
It was
I think
crazy,
he was yelling.
dude.
I think he was upset too. I think he was mad.
No, I watched it recently, and he just pops up and he's like, "We'll be right back," and he just turns around and he and then he talks about it on another show, and he's like, "I had no idea where I was or what happened." He's like, "I just woke up and cameras and lights were on, and that's just what I said."
Yeah. Well, how about that, man?
Dude, I've been there. I've been in a room at a party after one of these independent wrestling shows, and I won't mention any names, but there was a guy, and we were all in a back room smoking, and someone said to another one of my fellow wrestlers, wrestling's bullshit, wrestling's fake, and he put him in a sleeper hold, and he choked him out. I mean, he went down. I'll never forget it. He dropped to his knees, this guy, fell flat on his face, and he just, it was like out cold. And he woke up, and he's like, what happened? What happened? And the guy who choked him out, he's like, you just fell over, brother. You just passed out.
And it just happened. I didn't touch you. You just have sleep apnea.
Yeah. Me and my buddy that were there, we were like, let's get the hell out of here now. Like, it was scary, dude. Like, it was, I've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah, it sounds like a really mature art form, even though it kind of comes off like, silly and just comic bookish, but
Yeah.
an advanced, I don't even know what to call it. I mean, is it sport? It's sporty,
Well,
but it's not really competitive.
well, do you know the history of how it became sports entertainment?
No.
Well, it was after that, the whole John Stossel and all that stuff, but the Iron Sheik and Hacksaw Jim Duggan, they were, mortal enemies on television. They wrestled each other. Hacksaw Jim Duggan with the 2x4 ho, always USA, 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 and the Iron Sheik, of course, from Iran, and always, spitting on the United States flag and bringing out the Iran flag, waving it around. He was
Right.
the bodyguard for the Shah of Iran. In real life, that's no bullshit. Well, they were at Hacksaw Jim Duggan was at the airport renting a car, and the Sheik walked up to him and he said, "Hey, Jimmy, mind if I ride with you to the show?" "Sure, yeah, no problem." Well, they got arrested that day for I think they were Hacksaw Jim Duggan had a St. Pauli girl beer in his hand. They were smoking joints. Iron Sheik had cocaine on him. They got arrested, and it made national news that these two enemies got arrested together.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that's when the whole. I'm pretty sure that's when the whole drug policy and all that stuff started with. Because Vince McMahon was not happy about that. They broke kayfabe.
Kayfabe. Yeah.
They broke the golden rule of wrestling.
How about that, man?
Yeah,
I actually have really enjoyed hearing about wrestling, so I'm starting to think about like, oh yeah, I remember some of the toys I got, the pillowcase I got. I guess I was a bigger fan than I sort of remembered. But Casey, we've been talking for a while, so we have to move on.
All right.
I was going to bring something up, but I think I'm going to save that for next time, if you don't mind.
Sure.
But I thought maybe we can go to the big thing that we were planning on talking about today, because we both invested 2 hours of our lives, or an hour and a half of our lives. It felt like 5 hours of our lives to do a sort of book report on one of cinema's most forgotten films, Galaxy of Terror. So you checked out Galaxy of Terror?
I did.
On a scale of 1 to 10, not how good do you think it was, how much did you enjoy it?
Well, I'm going to give it a 7 on enjoyability. I liked it a lot.
So did I. I'm probably up there with a 7 or 8. When that thing started, I was just like, oh no, what the hell is this going to be? And you see the New World Pictures logo, you're like, okay, this starts to feel a little familiar to the shit that I liked. So you already know what you're in for.
Yeah.
So Galaxy of Terror, I think it was made in 1981. I think it's billed as it's a horror movie in space, right? So this is right after Star Trek stuff. This is right after Star Wars. This is right after Alien. So I think people are like, okay, these are the hot things. Let's go ahead and make a movie, try to capitalize on what people like. It's what they do in Hollywood. That's why you see, some of the same things reappearing all the time in Hollywood. They sort of get the vibe that people really like volcano movies, and then suddenly there's 3 volcano movies. Or people like Armageddon movies, and then there's 5 fucking Armageddon movies. So it's no surprise that this thing was made. The fun thing about this movie is it's on a $2 million budget. $2 million in 1981. I don't know what that equates to. Okay, I was 6. I didn't pay that much attention, so sorry. But I could have gone back and checked that out, but I guess I was too lazy to do that. But I still feel like it's a small amount of money for a movie. So as I'm watching this thing, all of a sudden I see it. It says a Roger Corman production. I'm like, there we go. Now this all makes sense. Roger Corman. Have you seen many Roger Corman movies?
I might have, but I mean, I definitely know his name, but I'm not sure if I've seen, name some of his movies,
We talked about that Fantastic Four. So
that
was Death Race 2000. You know what? I'm just going to pull up IMDb.
Death Race 2000, that's the original, because there's been some remakes of that, right?
There was, yeah. No, that was based off of a Roger Corman movie. That movie is just absolutely amazing. It's got Sylvester Stallone's in that movie.
Yeah. That I like that one. Yeah, for sure.
I think Robert Carradine. He was big doing Kung Fu. I guess, I don't know if it came before or after Kung Fu. And then eventually he did Kill Bill, which a lot of people know him from. Roger Corman. Roger Corman really likes that kind of like heavy violence and graphic nudity and stuff like that.
So going back to the budget, you said it has a $2 million budget. Just to compare it, like you said, Alien had just come out. Do you know what was the budget for Alien? Do you know?
I think Alien was like 10 to 15.
Oh, wow.
Wow, man, I'm just scrolling down on his IMDb. He's associated. He's produced so much stuff. So he's, directing, he's producing titles such as The Mask of the Red Death, The Terror, The Raven. Maybe that's wow, this goes all the way back to the 60s. He's been at it for a while. But the stuff you start to know when you're getting into like 80s territory, when you start to hear things like or start to see titles like Naked Vengeance. That sounds like a good one. The Barbarian Queen, Deathstalker. See, I remember Deathstalker. Ultra Warrior, like Watchers 2. I don't even know what these are. I haven't seen these, but you get the idea,
Was he brought in? It sounds like he might have been brought in to like try and like there's Watchers 2 there. Like he might have been the guy that, we're gonna do this sequel here. Maybe we can get Roger Corman in to do it.
Yeah, maybe. He costs a nickel. Let's go get him. So when you see it's a Roger Corman movie, two things. You're going to see a lot of gore and you're going to see a lot of breasts. So I'm like, okay, I understand it's a horror movie. So let's get ready. Let's see what kind of gore they have in the 80s. I can handle it. So probably my favorite thing about this movie is the cast. So the guy, this makes me laugh so much. I don't know why, but they got every single character you can possibly think of for this movie. I'm trying to figure out what angle to come at this on, but they got a guy named Ray Walston. Ray Walston was a pretty well-known actor. Like he had already done a big show. The show was called My Favorite Martian. Like it was a well-known show, and he's got a very distinct voice. He was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He was the
principal, right?
Yeah. Well, was he the teacher?
Yeah, he was the teacher.
Yeah. When the guy brings in the pizza. He's the teacher. So the very first scene, you're introduced to a character, and by the way, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen Galaxy of Terror. But right away, you're introduced to a character, and you've already seen the credits pass. The first character, his name is what was his name? The Master, the Planet Master.
Yeah. And well, actually, that's not the first scene, Bill.
You're right. It's not. They had one of their setup scenes that I didn't understand what the fuck was going on in that.
Right. That's what I wanted to talk about first, because the first scene, I guess we're meant to believe that it's a crashed spaceship, right?
Oh my God, you understand this movie. Go on. Yeah, something was going on.
So it was a crashed spaceship, and they show a guy. He's obviously scared to death, and he's just running like through the ship, with a gun, just like kind of looking over his shoulder. And I think he was in like some kind of like ship morgue or something. I'm not really sure what that room he was in, but there was like definitely a dead body there where you could see the guy's brain was out.
Right.
And then he gets a scene, or he sees something in the window, which is like, you can't really tell what it is, but like that's the end of that scene. Then like he just freaks out, and I'm not sure, they don't show him dying in any way. He just kind of like flies up against the wall, and the creature was on the outside of the ship. It was through the window.
Yeah, I remember. So the monster, it's like a blob. It looks like the Thing, and it's like they got a laundry machine, and it's just this weird thing spinning. And then the guy, the innocent guy goes flying against the wall. And I'm like, the fuck just happened? Did that thing use psychic powers to push him against the wall? And
that's exactly what that was.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that was, a fucking a washing machine.
Oh, my God. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at here. I don't know. The monsters in this movie are bizarre as hell.
Yeah. So then now go into where we're introduced to Ray Walston.
Okay. So this is the part I like. So all of a sudden you meet this character. He's playing a weird like tabletop arcade game, like the old Pac-Man arcade games that you would sit down and play with somebody across from you. And there's some old lady across from him, and I forgot what she did. She was out of the movie after this scene.
She was the one narrating.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
You really picked up a lot on this movie. I would get stuck on scenes and it would roll in my head. And I was just like, what the fuck is?
Dude.
And next thing you know, like 3, 4, 5 scenes went by. I'm still thinking about the last one in this movie.
Yeah, when you told me you were like, let's talk about Galaxy of Terror, I was like, okay. I bought the movie for $9.99, so I'll have it forever. And I opened my notepad up and I took notes on this movie.
You got a whole scrolling list of notes. All right.
I stopped. I would get to a scene, I would stop it, and I would take notes on that scene. So I have every scene. I mean, what do you want to know, brother? I got it all written down here.
Good. I have nothing written down. Just a stoned memory of what I saw. But all right, so going back to the Planet Master, like right away, it's like you can tell that they're like, this guy's the big bad, or he's not the big. He's the big power in this universe, and it's a character, and he's sitting there, and they kind of glow his head, right? They kind of just put this red sort of glow, and the guy right away goes, "It's time to put forth the plan that it's whatever he's doing," and right away you're like, "Oh, that's fucking Ray Walston." Like you hear his voice. And you're like, okay, so that's the part Ray Walston is playing. He's playing the big character who says that now we must, because he learned about this this prior scene that you and I don't even understand what the fuck happened, but he somehow heard about the washing machine, and he said, I need to send a bunch of people to space to go look into it. Okay. All right. I guess that's what you got to do. The all-wise, all-knowing, powerful being, he knows what to do, so he sends this crew to space, and now that's the kind of movie we get. It's basically that trope of mystery out in space. A group of people have to go solve the mystery. Basically, every Aliens movie.
Yep.
All right, so I know it's Ray Walston right away. So they start to show all the characters that are on the ship. They're all running to the ship.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Why was that captain in such a hurry to leave? She gave her crew of I think it was 7 people. She gave them 30 seconds to get ready.
Yeah, no,
she just
she had a chip on her shoulder. She's that like saucy pilot trope. She's like, they'll do it my way. They'll catch up. They'll learn. We'll teach them. I'm an experienced pilot. No, you're just an asshole. You didn't have to do that. Right? So there's the pilot, right? They also have the old guy who's like, the
commander.
This will be my last mission.
Yeah,
I'm too old for this.
He was the mission commander.
Right. Then they got the beautiful woman, and you don't know what she does. She just kind of talks through different screens, but she's on the ship too. Like she's like the Aurora character on did I say that right on Star Trek? Aurora.
I'm not sure.
But like they never really have a job that I know about. So she's just kind of like an attractive person. It's a Roger Corman movie. Doesn't have a descript sort of character. Okay, so she's on the boat.
This is the blonde
ship too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they got their good guy. You got your I don't even know what his name was. Then you find his love interest. His love interest is Aaron Moran, who played Joni from Happy Days. This is my favorite part of the movie. So they bring in Aaron Moran. I'm going to say this is my favorite part of the movie about 50 times because I have a lot of favorite parts. I can't have one. I have several favorite parts. So they bring in Aaron Moran, and she's like this big star, right? Because it's 1981. She's really known for Happy Days. There's a Happy Days spinoff called Joni and Chachi. And now it's her big screen debut. Maybe not her big screen debut, but it's her big next step. What's going to happen in my career? She's casted in Galaxy of Terror. As soon as I saw her, I was like, you got to be the main star. She's not even the main star. She's just part of the ensemble. And she's got, what kind of power did she have? She had like this psychic power.
She was size sensitive, which is I had to look that up because I wasn't exactly sure what that meant. Her name was Aluma. She size sensitive focuses on psychic extrasensory perceptions, like having to do with detection and sensing like supernatural things around the area.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's a thing. Okay,
Yeah,
I got some of that. Yeah. I know when there's aliens outside.
Yeah, and her love interest
is the good captain. Yeah.
I keep calling him Cameron, but his name was actually Cabrin in the movie.
Cabrin.
Yeah.
I love that too. With space movies, you gotta like just take normal words, twist them, and then move a few letters, and you got it.
Yeah, Aluma, Balon. We have Cabrin. The captain's name was Captain Trainter.
Was there a Jim? There was
Jim?
no Chuck. Yeah, there was nobody normal.
No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah. No Peter.
No Bill.
No Bill and Casey. So Sid Haig is in this movie.
Yes.
You know Sid Haig?
I love Sid Haig, man.
Sid Haig, R.I.P., passed away, but he was big in the Rob Zombie trilogy. Three from Hell, House of a Thousand Corpses. What am I missing? What's the one in the middle? Devil's Rejects. And he's an awesome dude. Like when I go to a convention, he's so nice and kind and chatty. I had no idea he was in this thing. And it's a younger version of him.
Yeah.
And he's like the Casey of the group. He's this big, strong guy. So I'm like, okay, we got this tough guy. And he's got this weird fascination with these crystals. Right?
They're throwing stars.
They're like ninja stars. Yeah. What does he say? I live and I live in by the crystals. So these crystals must be some kind of space magic. It's got to be like their version of the lightsaber.
And that line in the movie, Bill, is the first time. That's at least, I'd say, 35 to 40 minutes into the movie. That's the first line that Sid Haig has in the movie.
Does he have another?
After that, yeah, he does a little bit, but not much.
Oh fuck! I'm getting killed. That might have. I think he said that at one point. Oh, his portrayal was my favorite. Okay, yeah. I told you I was going to say my favorite a million times. When he threw they opened the door. All right, man, I'm jumping ahead. All right, so the whole ship eventually gets the ship gets sucked into this mystery planet. They crash land and they're like, okay, we're here, and they are going into this kind of cave thing. They're eventually going to find what we discussed in the beginning, that intro scene. They're going to now stumble upon two dead bodies. Maybe they'll see the washing machine monster. We don't know yet. So they're working to open the door, and the set is made of paper mache. Like this thing looks absolutely ridiculous. And they go to open the door, and it starts to shut, and he throws the ninja stars, which must be like impenetrable, unbreakable ninja stars, and he throws them, and it lodges the door open, right? But then you see suddenly the door is more powerful than the stars, and the stars shatter. Boom, like this really bad special effect. When you realize that you're just looking at two plastic throwing stars that really don't look like crystals. And fucking Sid Haig loses his mind. He
loses it.
Beside himself.
Yeah, I have to switch that around though on you, Bill. It was actually the other way around. He
blew up and the stars were okay.
No. The doors were actually already closed. And he threw the stars to try and keep the doors closed. Because I don't think that they wanted whatever was inside of those caves to be coming out.
What were they going to do? Just stand in the front of the cave forever with a busted ship?
I don't know, but think about it. Because when he threw the stars and they broke, that's when the doors popped open.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I must have watched it in reverse. Sometimes I do that. I skip ahead 10 minutes and then I skip backwards and watch the movie that way. We haven't even covered all the people that are in this movie.
So another thing though is going back is how did they know they crash landed on that planet where the other ship had crashed, and they just like determined or how did they know that it was safe to go out there without oxygen?
It's a really good question. Roger Corman really didn't think this through. It's a good point. They just got to run out. Hey, we crash landed here.
Yeah. So then the Aluma, then she obviously has problems with like the team leader, who is Balon, and he's not impressed with her size sensitive abilities. Right. He's like, if there's a problem out here, I'll find it myself.
Right. Tough guy.
Yeah, he was not impressed with her abilities at all.
He's the guy, Zalman King is his real name, right? Is he the one? He was the asshole. I'm in charge of this ship. Don't think you're going to be in charge of this ship. They picked me. Yeah, he went on. He became a director. He did a bunch of like Skinamax movies. Okay. Diaries and what else? I don't know, all those movies that I stayed up real late as a kid to watch. So he
So his
actually had a
acting-
career after this.
His acting career didn't last. He switched over to directing and stuff.
He's like, look how easy it is to make a shit movie. I can make shit movies. That had to be it. Who else did they have?
Man.
So they had two more people.
Robert Englund.
Robert fucking Englund, Freddy Krueger shows up in this movie. And he's a young version of himself. I don't know if I've ever seen him younger than that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I wouldn't be able to tell you if he was in anything before that.
Yeah, I gotta look that up. But what was his role? Everybody had a role on the ship.
So his role, he was the mechanic, Bill.
Oh, okay, the mechanic.
Yeah.
Did they say that? Because I must have missed it.
I just assumed that because he came out. He was one of the ones left on the ship with the captain, and Ray Walston was the other person on the ship who we find out is the cook.
The cook
of the ship, and then Robert Englund, he came down where the captain was sitting with the cook, and he had like some kind of like mechanic's tool pouch, which I just assumed that he was trying to fix something.
Okay, that makes sense. He was holding a needle nose pliers the whole movie, so he must have been the mechanic. I mean, they did such a bad job of setting this thing up. It just sort of rolled into a movie somehow. Now, you got this ship. You got important people on the ship. You got a cook. Of all the things to have, do you need a cook? Like, do you need an extra body just to be able to make, like, your ham sandwich at lunch?
Yeah.
But they got a cook. Okay. And then the fucking cook is Ray Walston. So I'm like, well, that's the fucking Planet Master.
That's the Oracle.
So he's on the ship. That's the Oracle. Does nobody else know that was the guy from the beginning? Was that supposed to be a surprise? So I'm confused watching the whole thing. I'm like, why is the Planet Master the cook? Oh, this is the twist. Fuck, I figured it out before I finished the movie. It was so obvious to me, Casey. I was just like, damn it. Ruined the whole thing for me.
I might have even scanned over that part. I don't even think until the end that I knew that he was because I wasn't as familiar with Ray Walston's voice as you were. So that's why it threw me off. Yeah,
it's like I'm the all-powerful, all important being. I'm gonna send these people on a mission that I don't understand, and I'm gonna be the cook so I can watch and make sure it goes okay, I guess. But like the whole time, I was he a bad guy or a good guy? I mean, it's one of those interesting sort of characters. You can't really tell what side of the fence to sort of place him on.
I would say, jumping ahead to the end, that he was a bad guy.
All right. When we get to the end, you have to explain why, because I walked away going, I don't know what the fuck happened.
Sure. So then, all right, so we're at the part, actually, before they go into those caves and before the crystal throwing stars break of Sid Haig's, they enter the other crashed ship, the one that we saw at the very beginning of the movie. And this is where we get our first jump scare.
Oh.
The body drops down. I don't know if you remember that.
I was probably too scared to remember it.
Okay, a body drops down from the ceiling, and Sid Haig throws both ninja stars into the body.
Right.
And then he goes and gets those throwing stars. And the other guy who we haven't named yet, I'm not sure of his name, but he was like the one that was afraid of everything. He
was like a rookie. I forgot. He's another trope in this ship.
Yeah, he was like
he's scared of everything.
Yeah, it was his first role. It was his first like mission or whatever. And after this body drops and after Sid throws the ninja stars, this guy pukes in the corner. And then the main guy, the not the captain, but the leader or whatever of the group, he just torches his body. He's got a flame. Everybody has flamethrowers,
right? And
they just torch this body,
right?
Like he was one of the crew members that they're looking for.
Yeah, now he's barbecue,
and they torch him. So of course, Bill. Then they all split up.
How could I forgot that part? I actually forgot there was a rookie until you reminded me. Like he was just like, you knew he was going to die first. There's no question. I don't want to go out. You're dead first. I don't want to go out. You're going to die first. That's right. So how many people were on the ship total? I think that's 20 people, 30, 40. My math is bad. 7 people on the ship.
Yeah. At least.
Cook.
Yeah. So that's when they all split up then, Bill, after
Yeah, what was
after
the reason
that.
for splitting up? They said, let's just all split up
Yeah.
and get
I
picked
mean,
off one by one. Let's not
yeah.
stay together and have each other's backs. Let's go. And we see these bloody dead people. Let's go one by one.
Yep.
Yeah. You know.
Yep. And this is kind of where we find out that I think everyone has their own, like after Sid Haig has the throwing stars, the glass throwing stars, I think everyone like kind of has their own special weapon. Like the guy has his flamethrower.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the other ones were. I think maybe they were the only two like special ones. I'm not sure. But then the second jump scare happens not too long after that, where the puke boy, as I call him in my notes here, he gets scared of like a wire, a falling wire, and he makes a ton of noise then after that. And
Wait, I don't remember this at all. So a wire fell.
yeah, like because
he
of the crash
screams
ship.
or does he puke?
No, but he's like very scared, you know, and like crawling and always looking over his shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, if you want me to stop here, if you're remembering anything.
No, at this point I was like, let's get on with it. Let's get rid of the rookie because we know he's gonna die.
All right, so then they come across another dead body. Another crew comes across another dead body, and they shoot it in the head, and then they torch it again.
Right. I thought that was the crew from the beginning.
Oh, the first one? Yeah. From the crashed ship.
Yeah.
In the very beginning. Yeah, that's who it is. And that's who this crew went to find.
Yeah.
They went to find survivors of that crashed ship. And that guy, the second guy that they torch, he's leaned over at a desk like that, and he possibly could have been sleeping, who knows? And they just blast him in the back of the head twice and then light him on fire.
Yeah. Dude, you okay? Yeah, we came to save you. Yeah. Come on. Oh, you're all right? Let's go. No, yeah, their way was, he's chunked.
Yeah. Yeah, he could have been just knocked out from the impact of the crash,
That's right. They really weren't very sophisticated, this crew.
No.
They didn't take a pulse or anything.
Nope.
He probably smelled bad.
Probably. So then an alarm goes off after that. We're not sure what kind of an alarm it is. It's just an alarm starts going off and making a ton of noise. And that's when we see the first monster, who actually just looks like a big giant beetle. I don't know if you remember that at all.
I don't remember the beetle
crawling through the wreckage of the ship, and it's just like, it looks like a big beetle.
Well, I think I passed out at one point because I woke up and they were some guy was crawling down a cave. When did that happen? He was going.
That's not for quite a while yet, Bill.
How could this movie have left gaps like that in my brain?
So I can jump. Let me jump to that. So then, Puke Boy makes a bunch more noise again. He's running for his life. He then comes into Balon, who's the dick, and Aluma, who is the psi-sensitive girl. And then Sid Haig and his buddy show up, and they're all together there. Sid Haig has a plastic bag over his shoulder with one of the torched crew members.
He's got a bag of the torched crew member.
Yeah, a body bag, of the torched crew member over his shoulder.
He's taking the ashes.
They're taking it back to inspect the body on the other ship, on their ship. So then the Puke Boy, he's clearly shaken, and he's like the last one, like, left behind, and he's still making a little bit of noise. But then he seems to like calm down a little bit, like he's ready to go off the ship, and then he just gets wrapped up and eaten by this monster that we saw a few minutes earlier, the beetle. Yeah. The Psy girl, she said she sensed something. They were already all back on the ship, but he was killed. Nobody ever, I don't know if they even really mentioned him again at all after that.
That's why I forgot him.
Yeah. Like, they didn't go back looking for him at all. I'm not even sure they mentioned his name again. I don't even know if he had a name to begin with.
They didn't once go, hey, where's anyone see the rookie?
Yeah, no.
Nobody even thought about him.
No. So then we see that two people are doing an autopsy on the crew member that Sid brought back. They go back outside. Psy Girl says she feels no sign of life at all, has never felt anything like this before, ever. And then they of course split up again, and then they start climbing the huge pyramid. Did you see that?
Yeah, right.
Where they're
Yep.
climbing the pyramid, and then the commander is the older guy. He's like getting second thoughts of like, why did I do this? Why, why? And then he falls. He's like climbing and he falls. You remember that part?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, so this is where we find out that it is like an actual pyramid and a big open hole. And the commander, the old guy that's getting the second thoughts, he shoots like a carabiner down into a couple rocks, and he starts climbing down this hole for whatever reason. And the you can definitely tell that they didn't spend very much money on this scene, because it's like him rappelling down this hole, and he's supposed to be going like down and down and down and down, and it's just like the same scene over. It's like he seems like he's at the same spot, like no matter how far they want you to think that he's going down that hole, he's still at the same spot.
Right. Little theater of the mind there, Casey. Yeah, that was a weird one. Like that's where that monster popped out.
Yeah,
pops out of this little cubby in this hole and sticks to his face. And dude, the sound effects were amazing. It was like,
yeah.
We sat there for like, was it a half hour watching that thing go?
It was one of the longer kill scenes for sure.
I'm pretty sure that's a sound that I've heard on Scooby-Doo. Like it's a stock sound. I was cracking up watching that one. Yeah, we don't even know why he was going down that hole.
Yeah, no, they were he goes down the hole, the line breaks free. The guy catches him, but then of course the worms come out and they start just sucking his blood. Like I guess they were blood-sucking worms, maybe.
Leeches.
Leeches.
They were space leeches. And the two up top who are desperately trying to pull him back. It's like that Jaws thing. It's like, let's get him out of the water before that shark eats him. And they start pulling up and they realize they lost him to something. Yeah. So they didn't actually see what got him.
Right. No. But then the other guy goes down after him, actually. I'm not sure if you remember that part.
I do not.
Yeah, he actually climbs down another line, and it's just the empty line. Is the empty rope is there. There's nobody there. They ate him.
Where could he have gone? He couldn't have fit through that little 4 centimeter circle there and then gone into that little cave, that little nook and cranny. This is a mystery.
Yeah. So this is then when we go back to the ship where we find the captain, the bitch captain that took off in 30 seconds. And also, we didn't talk about this, Bill. Before they crash landed on the ship, she, for whatever reason, sent them into some kind of like hyperspeed that no one was prepared for. Also, like before they crash landed on this ship that are on the planet that they're on now.
Well, that was the thing to give them all a big scare and get them moving.
No, this is while they're in the air.
She did it again.
Yeah.
What an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah, because remember the first time when she gave him 30 seconds, that's when we see Robert Englund at the very beginning, and he didn't even have a seat when they were taking off. He had to sit in the blonde's lap.
Right. Right. That was so strange. She just embraces him, and he's just sitting there like a kid on Santa's lap.
Yeah, so now we're in the scene where we're back on the ship and we're with the captain, who's the dick, who took off so fast and also sent them into hyperspeed, which caused them to crash. Yeah. She's now with Ray Walston, and she's trying to figure out why they sent a cook. It's starting to register with her, like why do we need a cook on this?
Oh, so she's like me.
Yeah.
All right.
So then this is where we find out that Robert Englund's the mechanic, because he comes down with the tool bag. And this is also where we find out where the captain, you can tell that she was in something really serious.
The pilot, yeah.
Back in the day, because anytime anyone mentions the name like Hesperus or something like that, I couldn't really pick up what they were saying, but she just like stares off into space. Like it's complete. It affects her like in a major way anytime anyone even mentions that name.
So it's like when you're hypnotized and they give you that word and you start to cluck like a chicken. Right. Because I remember that happened. All of a sudden she turned into some like different person. That's a good impression.
Yeah. So then they torch another body. They're like out in the middle of nowhere. They torch another body, and then the Psy sensitive girl, she's actually now getting pissed that they're burning the bodies because they're burning evidence.
Yeah.
So then this is where they come across the doors with that we talked about with the crystals, the swords, or the throwing stars. The stars shatter, and Sid Haig is obviously upset. They enter the caves, and now this is I did write this down in my notes.
I love your book report. It's so good.
It was 34 minutes into the movie at this point, and Sid Haig has not said a word yet. And so then they're inside the caves, and this is where he says, "I live and die by the crystals." Everyone else goes down through the caves, but he's still there by the entrance, like still visibly upset that these crystals were smashed.
Like he's on his knees crying. He's yeah, he's not taking it well.
Not at all. No. So then everyone else goes down into these caves. But the blonde girl you were talking about earlier, she goes back to check on Sid. But the doors are now closing to the cave again, and Sid he can't even bring himself to go pick up a weapon. Like there was a gun there on the floor that someone had dropped, and he like went to pick up the gun, and he couldn't do it. He stopped himself from picking up the weapon. So he went to the doors, and he was trying to hold the doors open himself, and he just couldn't do it. So now Sid Haig is stuck on the outside of the cave.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
So then he's standing there, and the throwing stars, he looks down at the smashed throwing stars, and somehow they go back together, Bill.
Yeah.
Everything rewinds, and now he has his throwing stars back.
Happy days are here again.
Yeah,
he's
buddy.
Empowered again. His mood has totally changed.
So, yeah, his mood has definitely changed. He's happy again. He goes to pick up the throwing stars, and one of the throwing stars, it breaks off, Bill. And this was like pretty much, this is, I think, where they spend a lot of their money, because this is one of the best scenes in the movie, in my opinion, is the crystal breaks off, and it goes into his arm and crawls up into his arm.
Yeah.
And it's gone up under his skin, and it's headed towards like his heart. So he takes the other, remember he has two of these crystal throwing stars. So he takes the other one that's in his other hand, and he cuts his arm off to prevent it from going into the rest of his body. If anybody knows The Walking Dead, you got to cut off before the infection gets into your heart, So his arm is still alive though, Bill.
That's right. I do remember.
It's still alive.
Deadish. Yeah.
Yes. So the other arm that he cuts off, remember, it still has that other throwing star that broke off the piece that went into the arm. Then the dead arm, not the non-dead arm, now kills
wings
Sid
the
Haig.
throwing star. I mean, this thing just like blah, like it's the weakest throw, and then when they show it, it's like
And this is where we find out that Sid Haig does definitely live and die by the crystals.
Wow. How poetic.
Yeah. So then we go back on the ship. We're back on the ship. Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger. The captain disappeared.
Let me rewind you for a second. Here's a little trivia for you. So James Cameron, famous director, right? Everybody knows James Cameron, went on to do his own Aliens movies. This was actually his first movie. He was working behind the scenes on this. And, the kind of production that this was, it was all everybody chipping in, people wearing different hats, doing different things. At some point, he was actually given a little bit of directing abilities. And I'm remembering now, because the hand that was on the ground, I believe that was part of his special effects, I think he shot that. So this movie actually launched the career of James Cameron.
Wow. Yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes, not only because it had Sid Haig in it, who we all love, but because it was a pretty cool horror scene,
Yeah.
So then we go back onto the ship then, and Freddy's looking for the captain. The captain has disappeared, and I
Freddy.
don't know. I don't know if we see the captain again, or if it was ever said why she's no longer around. I mean,
Something weird happened. She's standing outside. The windows were open. The door was open. Remember?
See, that part I missed then, because I thought she just disappeared.
Something happened to her.
Okay.
Like she's facing some horror that she can't handle. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess we'll have to leave the audience hanging on this one.
Yeah,
How
so
did she die?
Yeah, if anyone knows how the captain disappeared on Galaxy of Terror, please let us know, because that part I must have skimmed over that part, because I have written down that I have no idea what happened to the captain. She just, in my book report, she just disappeared.
Casey, I watched it and I have no idea what happened to at any point in this movie.
I thought that this was a very odd scene in the movie too. Robert Englund comes in, and when he's trying to find the captain, Ray Wallstein, the cook, is sitting there in the captain's room, and he's reading a book. We don't know what the book is or anything, but he asks Robert Englund if he wants to read it, and Robert Englund gets physically pissed off about it. He's like I don't know if he can't read or what the backstory is there, but he's not happy about him trying to get him to read a book.
Don't you know books have been banned? You should go to jail for that, cook. Yeah, I remember that awkward moment.
So then the blonde girl comes outside. She gets the doors open somehow, and she finds Sid Haig dead there, and she torches Sid's body. Of course, they torch the bodies, and the dead arm. I thought this was kind of strange. It had maggots all over it. If you know anything about maggots, it takes at least a day after the eggs are laid for maggots to appear. So did Sid's arm have maggot eggs inside of the arm? How were the maggots there so fast, Bill?
Listen, this movie's directed by a guy who has made a movie called Strip to Kill 2. You're asking very good questions. But you just have to suspend reality a little bit here.
All right. So we'll move on then. So then a worm, they just show a big worm somewhere, and he's just growing. It's just like a worm, and it's just a scene, and he's just getting bigger.
Yeah. This is the most disturbing part of the entire movie.
Yeah. So
and this is the most Roger Corman part of the entire movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to explain this part?
Nope.
So the blonde that she saw the maggot arm, she torched that, after the worm. She's all alone trying to find everyone that she has now lost that were back in the caves. And she comes across, I guess, this big worm that was getting, the giant worm that was getting bigger. And it starts to, wrap her. We've all seen the Evil Dead rape scene where the tree rapes the woman. It's sort of like that. This bug, whatever the fuck it is, it rapes her, and she almost seems to be enjoying it.
I know.
That's a little bit.
Yeah.
And
that
then
was the foulest part of the whole thing.
Yeah, and then I thought that he ate her. I thought that she was completely gone, but then we find out a little bit later that they find her body just laying there.
Right.
So it did not eat her, but back on the ship.
But wait a minute. How do you think this scene came about? Who says, what we got to have? We got to have a woman raped by a worm. Who thinks that up? That can only fly in the 80s.
When did Evil Dead come out?
Oh, that might have been late 70s, right?
78?
It was Sam Raimi's college film or something like that.
78, 79, 80. So maybe someone was a big fan of Evil Dead, and they thought, let's put the rape scene in. We'll use a bug. We'll use a bug instead of a tree. That had to be a Roger Corman thing.
Oh yeah. Whose mind goes there? And then how do you be an actress and you're like, oh, that's the part I'm gonna play? Do you know that when you sign up, or do you get a script change that day? Okay, script change. I'm raped by a worm.
Yeah, we changed a few things around here.
Yeah, you can't do the shit they do in the 80s today.
No way.
It's so inappropriate. Nobody seemed to care back then. That's what blows me away.
Yeah.
Shit like that scared the fuck out of me as a little kid because it just made the world seem absolutely horrible.
Yeah. Well, think about even going back even further, some of the movies that they made, like what was the one with Charles Bronson? Now, it's not a horror movie, but
right,
like
Death Wish.
Death Wish. I mean, there was like a violent rape scene in the beginning of that, you know? And Jeff Goldblum was one of the guys that was doing the raping. You know,
Jeff thought he was a better guy than that.
Yeah, no, he's a raper in movies. All right, so now we're back on the ship now. Freddy is starting to have second thoughts of he's also wondering why this cook is there, and he's doing something that the cook doesn't like, and Ray Walston, the cook, knocks him out. He gets knocked out cold.
Right. This is where we're starting to realize the cook is on there for a reason.
Yeah. Oh, so no way. I do have the captain in here again. The captain finds out then that she saved the cook's life somewhere, and it was back on this Hasbrass or whatever, the where she always gets the vision, you know, where she always is looking off into space.
Yeah.
Her and Ray Walston were together on that mission, and she saved his life during that. And this is where the Ray Walston comes in and finds the captain playing that game that we saw at the beginning of the movie. I call it Asteroids. I'm not exactly sure what that was.
It could have been Asteroids.
But oh no, she's not playing the game. She's actually just like at a gun, like on the ship, and she's just like firing into space. She's like having a mental breakdown. Yeah. And,
but she's actually firing. That's right. And the special effects were so bad that like you never really saw what was happening outside of the ship.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, she was like just breaking down, like thinking that things were attacking them or whatever. And then the cook was like, you know, you got to stop that. And then that's when she disappears, is after that. We never see her again after that. And
you
then,
know, we have not told one part of this story in the actual order that this shit was edited and shot.
No, it's somewhat in order.
And you know, it's still enjoyable. Like, it doesn't matter. You can watch this movie in reverse.
Nobody's ever going to have to watch this movie after this podcast.
No, but if you watch it in reverse, then it's like a new movie. It's like a new experience. You can watch the worm unrape the woman, right? You can watch people go from fire to walking humans. This is a good idea.
So
let's start a podcast just watching movies backwards and then seeing if we like them better.
So after that, Freddy comes back and he's wondering who hit him or why he was knocked out, and then he just starts running through the halls of the ships, like just like looking for something, you know. And I
love you call Robert Englund Freddy. That's good.
And then let's see, a door opens and there's a burned body there. Do you remember this at all, Bill? Because I had a question about this.
There was a lot of torching. I can't remember every body they burned.
Okay, well, after Robert Englund, Freddy gets knocked out, and he comes back. He was looking for who knocked him out. He's running through the halls of the ship, and a door opens up, and there's a burned body there. But I'm not sure who that was. I'm not sure if it was it almost looked like the captain or the commander that got eaten, his blood sucked by the worms. But he was down in that hole, and I'm wondering how he would have got back to the ship and burned. But I don't know who it was. You know, it definitely looked like him because he was like an older guy that had hair out to the sides, and he was the only character like that on the ship. But none of that stuff. I mean, he was sucked. The blood was sucked out of him in the hole, and he wasn't burned. So I don't know who it was.
You got to remember, this movie was directed by the man who directed Smokey Bites the Dust. I still have the IMDb page open. Sorry.
Perfect.
Uncredited executive producer.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
So then the rest of the crew, I'm trying to get through this here because I know we've been going for quite a while. Then they find the blonde. She wasn't eaten. They torch her, of course. They all go back on the ship. The vapor locks are sealed. They determine there's no survivors, but the leader of the group says he's not going to leave the planet without killing the things that killed everyone on their ship. So they all go back off the ship now with the cook. The side girl, she's not happy about it, but she doesn't want to stay on the ship by herself. So they all go back down in these caves where it's really windy for some reason. She doesn't want to go down. The side girl doesn't want to go down. She's scared. She asks her, remember you said about she had a love interest in the movie? This was one of my favorite lines of the movie. She was like in a panic mode about going down these windy tunnels. And she said to her boyfriend, "Aren't you afraid?" And he said, "I'm too scared to be."
Wow.
So great.
How could I miss that line?
So they all go down into the holes, and somebody hears something. They all start shooting. The side girl, she gets stuck. She gets claustrophobic, or she is claustrophobic. She gets stuck, and then they're sliding down the hole. She gets pushed. Now they're inside the pyramid, and they're crossing like this tiny little bridge to get over to the center of it. And this is where we get another glimpse of like some kind of shadow creature.
Don't you feel like at this scene though, it was a little bit too fun? Like they should have had like music because they're all going down these wacky slides.
Oh, yeah.
And then Aaron Moran gets stuck at one point. Somebody comes slide down and bust her through. And like these are like supposed to look like the gross internal, pockets of whatever this thing is made of. But no, it just looks like a regular fun water slide, and they're like, whee, right down there. It looked like a lot of fun, but the whole tone changed when they started going down the wacky slides. It was like a Goonies thing. Like, oh, what's going to be at the end?
Yeah.
So what was at the end?
So what was at the end is a bridge to cross over into the center of the pyramid. This is when we find out that it is actually a pyramid, and the shadow creature that we see, and we can see the creature is crawling underneath the bridge, like right below them, and it actually trips Robert Englund, and this is where the tension starts to build between the crew, because he thinks that the guy behind him, the Dick, the leader of the group, tripped him, and so they start like going at it a little bit. So then the Dick, the Bellum guy, the leader of the group, he says, "Go ahead without me, I'll catch up." And another door in this pyramid starts opening and closing, and somehow the cook, Ray Walston, knows where the switch is to this door, which like, how did no one know that? Like, oh, well, how the fuck do you know where that is? Why,
Yeah. No questions asked.
Yeah.
How did you know to stick your hand into that hole and turn the knob? How did you know?
Yeah. Then like Bellum sees this. It looks like the devil. That creature is like, don't you think it looks a lot like the devil?
It was like a wolfy devil.
Yeah. So then Bellum, of course, he's separated from the group. He gets ripped open by this devil looking thing. This is where Robert Englund now discovers that the cook is the guy that's behind all this, and he keeps seeing something, but he's not sure what it is. And is it me, or are they all dressed like Ghostbusters too? I noticed.
Yeah, they had like the cheapest of all backpacks.
Yeah,
I noticed that too. It's like, wow, that's how you know the budget of the movie.
Yeah,
it's based on their backpacks.
So then Freddie is like really pissed off. He's not happy. He thinks that it's the other guy, Erin, the side lady, and her boyfriend. He thinks that they're behind it. So then like this weird triangle appears, which I wasn't quite sure about what that was. But they all it's like a door.
Yeah, like a teleportation door.
Yeah, and they all, every time like, the girl walks through it, she's somewhere. Then Robert Englund walks through it, he's somewhere else, and then the boyfriend walks through it, and they're all three separate places.
Yeah.
But they can actually see each other through these glass, through this glass, but they can't find each other.
It's like a fun house. It's like a hall of mirrors.
Well, that's exactly what it is, because then it's Freddy versus Freddy. They fight each other. He fights himself.
Versus Robert. Yeah. But that's when we start to figure out that what the planet's doing is it's reflecting its fears back to the person. And I think that's important.
Bingo.
Going back to the woman who was afraid of slugs, Was the other guy like? It didn't make sense. But I'm sorry to take you off the storyline. The telling you, you're doing a wonderful job, Casey. I want you to know. But at this point, this is where the movie just completely is like, we need to hurry up and get this fucking thing done.
Yes.
So we need to separate them and kill them.
Yeah.
And still get to the point of why everybody is being killed the way they're killed. And when you go to Erin Moran, who I still think is supposed to be the star of the movie, and I see she probably only had to show up for work like one day to film her entire thing. So the part where they kill her, dude, that is one of the most intense graphic deaths I've ever seen. Do you remember how they killed Erin Moran, the Psy woman? They just kind of like her face starts to get covered with all these
yeah, and her
head pops.
Yeah, her head popped. Yeah.
Like it just popped, and her eyes are already big, and she's opening her eyes like really wide, like she looks like Michael Jackson from Michael Jackson's Thriller. And this thing's rapid, and I'm like, you can't kill Erin Moran. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, her head popped. Like I was waiting for like her shoes to squirt off or something like that, but her head just popped. And dude, I shit with every part of my anus. I could not believe that happened. I was like, you just killed Erin Moran, and the image of that I cannot get out of my goddamn head. The effects were really good.
Yeah,
too good on Galaxy of Terror.
Yeah. So that what you're saying there is. We have to think now. We know that it's their fear. Their fear is what is killing them.
Yeah.
So what was her fear? Worms? She was. I know she was claustrophobic. I know she was claustrophobic, but I guess that being a fear, claustrophobic, she got wrapped up. She got,
She might be afraid of getting her head popped.
She got sucked so tight that her head exploded.
I guess, yeah, that actually makes sense. See, you're good at this. You and Roger Corman. All right, so we got two people. Well, we got three people left. We got Freddie, Robert Englund. We got Robert Englund left. We got the cook, who we all know is Planet Master. And we have the good guy. He's half Han Solo, half Luke Skywalker. He's the moral guy, whose name I still don't know. Bandar.
Cabron.
Okay, Cabron. All right, continue.
So Freddie, Cabron, and the Master are the only ones left.
We don't know who's the Master yet. We still think.
No, right. This is where we find out though that he's the Master. They're Freddie and Cameron. I call him Cameron. They're back at the some kind of entrance to the pyramid, where it's like these huge steps going up to Ray Walston, who comes out and says, Freddie says something. I can't remember. He says, let's see. We find out that it was his own fear that attacked Robert Englund. Then Cameron says, there's no horror here that we don't create ourselves. And if that's true, it's finished. Then Ray Walston comes out and he says, there has hardly even been a beginning.
Oh, no.
What does that mean?
He's setting up for a sequel.
Is that what that was?
That's got to be a sequel.
And then, of course, Freddie says, I knew it. And then they go back up to, he goes to the top of the steps, and he calls the guy Core. Did you notice that?
Nope. By this point, I'm just like, holy shit.
Erin
Moran's eyes just popped out of her skull. I'm still stuck on this at this point.
And they're at the core, the center of the pyramid. So this is where I had to Wikipedia this, because it kind of really made no sense to me. So I'm just going to read what Wikipedia said. It says that Ray Walston, he is the Master, cannot be killed. He tells Cabron that he has won the game. The Master then explains that the pyramid is actually an ancient toy for children of a long extinct race, built in order to test their ability to control fear. Cabron is then forced to confront the creatures which attack the crew, as well as zombified versions of his dead crew, all of which he kills. And then this is where I realized, Bill, why Sid Haig had the ninja stars. Because if you notice, while he's fighting Sid Haig throws some Steven Seagal type karate moves.
Jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, so I think that he might have had like a karate or some type of martial arts background, and that's why he had those ninja stars. And he's also almost tempted to kiss his zombie girlfriend, the Psy girl, Aluma. Then the master says, "You cannot find the rage."
Did you say they all come back to haunt him?
Yeah, zombies. Yeah,
they all come back in like their form that they died.
Yeah. Yep.
Right, and he didn't even see the way that they all died.
No.
But yeah, the girlfriend comes back, who I still am, can't believe they killed. And he says, "Okay, I remember Robert Englund saying, 'This is my fear. I should just remember it's my fear,' and then poof, he wins the game that way. This whole thing has been a game."
Yep.
All right. At this point, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? There's a wolf monster buzzing around. There's all sorts of things. And we find out the cook is really the Planet Master looking to give his Willy Wonka estate over to, Charlie. He's basically like, you're going to be the next guy. But what is the guy? What the fuck is he going to be? He's going to be the Planet Master. What is the Planet Master? A game player?
Yes, see, that's why I had to Wikipedia this, because that's where I was completely lost. Like all the notes that I took prior to this were all my notes that I took, that I studied the movie, I watched it, I rewound, I went over different parts of the movie. The ending, like you said, I think they were just trying to wrap it up. They didn't know what else to really do.
We're $50 over budget. Wrap it.
So then the master, Ray Walston, says, "You cannot find the rage that made you want to kill me, but I am the same man I was before." Then Cabron stands up, takes a deep breath, and lasers just shoot out of his stomach and into Ray Walston, and Ray Walston curls up and says, "It is done." And then so now the host body is dead, who was Ray Walston. But of course we know the master cannot be killed. But Cabron takes his place, and Cabron states that he will not play this game and will simply leave the planet. And then core was actually the master's word, which I believe the core, that's kind of what I thought, is because he was at the center of this pyramid, like it's the core of the pyramid, and that's why he was like glowing and all that shit. It says his dying words express doubt that Cabron will ever be able to change his fate. Cabron is now the master. He torches the cook, of course, as you always burn the evidence.
Right.
And he gets the orb, and that's the fucking end of the movie.
What have we learned?
That's it.
I mean, there's no opening for. Well, there's an opening for a sequel. I guess we could see what happens to the new master. See if he actually does become a game player. Yeah. You left on a cliffhanger. That is a brilliant movie.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it.
You know what's funny? Hearing you talk about it, there really was more thought put into this storyline than I had any idea of. Because I really would just drift it. I couldn't stay focused on the story. It was not really a well-told story. Sorry, Roger, there's a miss here. I think you could have directed a little bit tighter.
Well, we have to be honest with the people that are listening. We kind of recorded some of this before our Larry Hankin interview. Bill had talked about it. He wanted to do a segment on it, and we just really didn't find that it fit well with the Larry Hankin episode. So I wanted to do a little research on the movie myself so I could talk about it. And Bill, like when I don't like to talk about stuff that I don't know anything about. Do you know what I mean? Like I look stupid, and I'm not good at making shit up about. I'm not a good bullshitter, I guess,
Oh, don't sell cars.
So that's why I'm glad we revisited this, and I had a little time to do a little research on it, and I think I would definitely recommend the movie if you're into this type of horror. And going back to our recording before the Larry Hankin interview where we talked about this, I will agree with you. I think you do skim over a lot of stuff where
all right.
I was like, we talked about it, and then I was like, I watched it and I was like, wait, this makes a lot more sense than Bill was making it seem like.
Well, now that we've peeked behind the curtain and we said we had a dry run of this, I forgot even more since the last time we talked about this movie. So I'd really like to know if the audience enjoyed listening to us do a book report, because clearly we have just found out Casey is the organized one. He understands, and can see the things I can't see in these movies. So I like the format. I like, hearing you tell the story. But, we gotta, if we're gonna do this again, I guess we gotta find another movie to rip apart. I would love to hear what people want to, see us talk about. I enjoyed doing that. I hope people enjoyed listening to that.
Yeah, I hope so too, man. This was definitely fun.
Well, Casey, it's a long one. You're gonna have a lot of editing to do, sir. And
It's all good, brother.
Look at my video. I used the sun to start here to light my face, and the sun has gone down.
Now it looks like you just have a head and 2 arms.
I look like I'm in Galaxy of Terror. So why don't we close it up here, Casey? Let's talk about where you can find all of our stuff and yada, yada, yada. And your other podcasts, don't forget to plug them.
All right. Yeah, definitely search for us on YouTube. You can find us Deluxe Edition, yet another pop culture podcast. We're now also on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, everywhere. You just have to type in Deluxe Edition. If you type in Deluxe Edition, yet, it will come up. Also, we're on Twitter and Instagram at Deluxe Edition Pod, and that's just with 1 E. And then also our website. You can find our website, deluxeedition.show, and that's spelled with 2 E's, deluxe, and then edition.show. And also, yeah, find me on my other show. I have another show that comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's called On the Road with Jim and Casey with James Morganti, and we talk to a lot of different up-and-coming actors and a whole lot of different people. So check it out. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and all that stuff for On the Road with Jim and Casey.
And these get published every Friday. You put them out?
Yes, sir. Every Friday night at 8 o'clock. You can find our show live on YouTube and on Facebook. And then also on all those other platforms that I said. Is iTunes even still a thing? Or did they switch over to, is it called like Apple Music or something now?
You are the expert, sir. I don't know. Yeah.
People, I say iTunes, people know what I'm talking about. So
this thing's called a podcast, right?
Yeah, buddy.
That's about as much as I know. Well, I hope we get to hear from everybody. It would be really cool to know, what you like and what you don't like as we shape this going forward. Episode number 3 is in the can. And just remember, always live and die by the crystals.
Yeah, buddy. And click that subscribe button, please. It helps out more than you know.